You're listening to the MycoGeeky podcast.
All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to the MycoGeeky podcast, podcast that goes deep so you can level up your at-home mycology game, mushroom cultivation game, microscope game, whatever game you're playing, as long as it includes fungi. That's right. That's what we're here for. Shining the light on the many facets and fantastic people who are a part of this community. And tonight, no exception, got something a little different. We're not talking cubes tonight specifically, although we will get into cubes a little bit. We are talking to Aaron Hilliard of Mushroom Wonderland. He has got a fantastic YouTube channel. He gets to roam around the Pacific Northwest with all sorts of great mycologists, foragers, just mushroom lovers, right? Anyway, but before we get into that, we gotta do a little shout outs here. It's been t-shirt week for Geeky at the old Geeky homestead. I got all sorts of t-shirts I want to show off here. My buddy Mushman 9000 all the way from Canada, he sent me some customs. Check these things out, guys. Let's see if I can do this here. There we go. There it is, Mushman 9000. That's him, MM9K. You know, that's not a printful t-shirt. That's handmade. So thank you very much, brother. Love you, appreciate it. But that's not all. He didn't just send me one custom-made t-shirt. He sent me two. So check this one out. Definitely excited about this one as well. There it is, the MycoGeeky podcast. The Rainbow Ghost. Looking super slick. All right. Appreciate it. Really do. And as if that wasn't enough t-shirts, my guest tonight, you know what he did? First time I ever had this. He just said, "Hey man, I'm gonna send you out a little package." And I got intimidated. I said, "Well, I guess I'm gonna send you a package too, because man, I don't want to feel like you're the only one sending me anything." So anyway, he sent me a nice little care package. Check it out. Another t-shirt. There we go, Mushroom Wonderland. Yes. Take note, future podcast guests. If you guys got t-shirts, send it to Geeky. He'll wear it on an upcoming podcast, I promise. So Aaron will see that one upcoming here. And you know what? That's not all he did. You know what he did? He wrote me a letter just to thank you. Really, he's a pro. Yeah, I'm taking notes. Don't worry. So really appreciate that. And then he sent me right there some nice, clean, slick Mushroom Wonderland slaps. Definitely going to go on the back there. But man, it not only t-shirt week, it was also slap week. Check it out. I got new stickers in. There we go. Mushroom Jesus, guys. Mushroom Jesus. You know, some academics believe that the original sacrament might have actually been mushrooms. So anyway, that's in honor of that. I also got some new Trippy Ghost magnets. Trippy Ghost magnets right there. Slap them on your fridge. Those are going out with, orders, sterilizer, stuff like that. And then my mod, Royce, he is quite the artist. But anyway, he loves making all these little welcome logos for the Discord. And he made this one into stickers and sent it to me. Geeky Squad, love it. I'm assuming that's me on the left. And then probably the coolest, just straight up trippy mushroom sticker I've ever seen. That one right there. I dig it. So shout out to Royce. Just little extra things that people in my Discord do to make it real fun. And then my buddy, another buddy, sent me some genetics to work and a slap. Trash Ninja Chaga. Check them out. He sent me, where is it? Right here. some garlic mac to work. We're gonna work that, see how it goes. Looks nice. Anyway, so now that I got all the fun doodads and stuff out of I got one more. Guess what else I got? One of my buddies was kind enough to design me this really cool logo for the mug. Got the homie Ed Grand on there. You know, we're scandalous over here, right? We're scandalous, aren't we? Anyway, it's more fun than saying boring or benign or kind to everyone. We'll be scandalous. You know, drink your morning coffee drinking out of a scandalous mug. There you go. Okay, so here we go. We're going to do it. So this guy runs a pretty big YouTube channel. He's got, I think it's like, hold on, I took notes. 48,000 subscribers. Been doing it for 2 years. Almost 170 videos. And they're not like the live streams like mine. They're literally, you know, edited videos of him roaming the Pacific Northwest, looking for cool mushrooms. Anyway, so without further ado, let me welcome to the show Aaron Hilliard of Mushroom Wonderland.
Hey, how's it going, Geeky? Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, man. Let me
watching, listening to all your podcasts lately as I commute to my day job.
Oh, great. Well, now I got even more pressure. Got to keep up. I've been going shorter lately, and I've had a lot of people who are like, man, you know, what am I supposed to do for my 3-hour lab sessions? I used to count on your podcast being 3 hours. Now I'm like, yeah, man, just talk to my wife, dude. Like,
yeah,
it gets to be a lot. So we'll talk about that because you've made, I mean, I think I'm approaching 40 videos. You're approaching 200. And a lot of mine, I didn't even have to edit. So you've definitely put in the work. So we'll talk about that. But first I want to do, what I do with everybody, which is the Myco origin story, that first mushroom memory. You know, truly go way back. When was the first time mushrooms hit your radar? And then kind of talk us, you know, how you first became interested in foraging, kind of bring us right up to what caused you to go, I think I'm going to start a YouTube channel around this.
Yeah, I love that topic, and I've talked about it a little bit on my channel if you're familiar with any of my videos, but I talk about my grandma. So she was taught by her step grandma, who was from Japan. This lady named Toshi. My great grandpa went to war, came back with a wife from Japan, and she knew all about foraging wild mushrooms. Maybe not all about it, but she knew a little bit about it and passed it on to my grandma. And she would teach her about matsutake, which were a really popular mushroom in Japan, really highly revered there. And they grow here, a different species of them, but she taught my grandma. So I remember, you know, some of my earliest memories of my grandma taking me out into the woods, and we would find mushrooms and then go to her house and try to look them up in her field guides. She had a few different mushroom books that I was fascinated by, and I was probably 8 years old. And then when I was around 12, she lived out the last 10 years of her life in like a converted school bus, like living her dream, camping to death, basically up in the Olympic Mountains of Washington, just super beautiful up there. So I went up in the summer, late summer, and spent a couple weeks with her and ride my little dirt bike around on the trails. And one day she handed me a bucket, and her old friend were playing cards. And she said, "Why don't you go out and try to find some, you know, some big orange mushrooms? They're kind of roughly, just put them in the bucket, bring back whatever you find." And so I went out for a little while, and I came back with what I had found. And I remember the look on their faces when they saw these chanterelles that I had found. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I found a bunch of them, and they were like, "Whoa, look at these," you know, and they got so excited. I was hooked right then, you know. It was like there's Easter egg hunting type excitement all year round, you know what I mean? It's like treasure hunting. And then
wow, man, chance out of the park, just out of the gate. I love it.
yeah. So up there by Lake Cushman in the southeast Olympic Mountains, it's a real heavy conifer forest, and we have Cantharellus formosus, really big, beautiful orange golden chanterelles. And so I remember she made a pot roast and like put them in the gravy. And I think something about just their excitement and how much they kept talking about it and showing off to everybody the mushrooms, that it just all of a sudden I liked mushrooms. You know, I don't think I even liked eating them prior to that really, but I was sold, you know. And then of course, you know, when I was 14 or 15, you know, me and my bad buddies, you know, we got into everything. And then shrooms came, you know, and we discovered magic mushrooms, and we discovered that they grew. You know, another one of my really early memories is driving by this cow pasture, and I remember looking out as a kid and seeing people with plastic grocery bags, and they were hunched over walking around in the field.
Right.
And I was like, what are they doing? And my mom's boyfriend, he said, oh, they're picking magic mushrooms. And I remember saying, like, what? Like, and that really, you know, sparked a curiosity. And so when I was 15, it was the mid 90s, and around here just exploded with these magic mushrooms. Psilocybin stuntii just started growing in all these lawns, all these new housing developments that were putting in sod. All of us, like 10th, 11th graders, like we were skipping school and just filling our pockets and our hats and everything with shrooms. It was insane. And so, you know, I just have a way of like getting hyper obsessed on whatever I'm doing. So that took me into a different, but I was always in the woods hunting chanterelles, always hunting edibles, always just curious. You know, I remember a big stump flushing with these sulfur tufts with Hypholoma fasciculari when I was young. And I remember looking at them and looking in the field guides, determining that they were poisonous, and still being, you know, so I've just all around just like a mushroom nerd or geek. I don't know which one, you know. I guess a geek. A geek's way cooler, right?
I'm down with the geek. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like geeks are cooler than nerds. So
I think so. Me and my wife were talking about it yesterday. Like a geek is just really good at one thing, and
mhm.
like a nerd is just like smart at everything, but not very well liked or something. I don't know.
Exactly.
But
Yeah. True.
so, anyways, you know, I just kept. I've just always stayed in the woods, especially in the autumn, looking for mushrooms. When I was like 16 or 17, I discovered a mushroom stand that would buy edible mushrooms, chanterelles, hedgehog mushrooms, matsutake. They'd pay you cash, and you just come with your mushrooms, you put them on their scale, they weigh it, and then they hand you cold hard cash every day. And when you're a little stoner, partier, you know, high schooler, and I'm driving around my little beat up truck, I'm a little skater kid, but I'm like out in the woods finding matsutakis, go sell them, get some money for gas and party money or whatever. I literally like supported my partying habits with mushroom picking, commercial, you know, edible wild mushrooms. And so I've just got this mushroom background, but you know, in my 20s and 30s, you know, mainly my 20s, I just got busy, and I was just living a raw life. I kind of went in and out of jail a lot, and was kind of like trying to be this bad boy. And it's kind of nerdy to be a mycology guy. And so I was shy about my
Right.
interest in the hobby. Honestly, most people didn't know I did that. My family knew, and I would go to my mom's and be like, here's some chanterelles, some porcini. I give her all these mushrooms, but I didn't really kind of kept it in the closet. You know what I mean? And then I was tardy to the internet party because I didn't even know that all you guys were on the shroomery and all this stuff. I'm still just like picking alone in the woods. And I was late to, you know, to really get into the internet and then discover like, oh man, like you and I were talking about before the show, like there's a whole community out here, and I didn't really know. I had gone to wild mushroom shows with my grandma as a kid, and it was old, decrepit people, and so I didn't know that there were other young people who were interested in mycology. I mean, I knew there were people doing drugs. You know what I mean? There's like that aspect of it, but there's also people who are just really, really geeky about mushrooms and identification, and so once I kind of grew up and humbled myself, and you know, I got sober almost 9 years ago, and life just changed a lot, and got married and met this wonderful gal who like accepts me for who I am, and you know what I mean. I kind of grew
Right.
up, and then I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna like do what my passion is. And I was making all these videos about sailing. We go sailing around the Puget Sound, and just travel videos, mountain bike videos, just random videos, because I went to school. I went to a couple of years of college for video making because I wanted to make snowboard films and stuff. And so, anyways, one day we went morel picking, and I was like, I should make a mushroom video, and we had pretty good success, I guess. And the video was kind of cool. And I was like, you know what? This channel I'm doing all this random stuff on. It is my personal channel. I was like, I should start one just for mushroom foraging. And she's like, that's a cool idea. And I was like, maybe, I don't know why Mushroom Wonderland popped in my head, but I was like, let's see. And I typed it in and it was like available, like kind of, or whatever. I guess I'm at Mushroom Wonderland 1, but
I know I saw that asshole that got just straight up Mushroom Wonderland and he's got like 2 videos. Man.
I know.
What
Yeah.
a punk.
Right. And there's some like company, mushroomwonderland.com, where you can buy like extracts, and I'm not going to talk smack, like they probably have good products or whatever, but whatever, maybe I'm stealing their thunder. I don't know, but either way, I just started making these videos, and I don't know, I could go on and on about how the channel has gone, if unless you want to ask me.
Yeah, so let's do that. Because I like talking to people about content. I think that the interest in mushrooms, whether it's specifically cubensis or psilocybin containing mushrooms, or just gourmets and medicinals, and I think there's a huge interest in mushrooms, both for the health benefits, the mental health benefits, and just the geekiness of it, just the like really getting obsessed with the morphology or the foraging. um and now there are social media role models that are sort of modeling this behavior, like you or Alan. Like literally, I don't even have to guess right now. Alan is literally foraging somewhere right now. I know that for a fact. He's never not he's sleeping, eating, going to the bathroom, or foraging. There's like, I don't think there's much else. Maybe some sequencing here and there.
Yeah.
But then people see that and they go, looks like he's having fun. Let me go try it out. And then some people get hooked. And
Yeah.
now you got all sorts of people doing this. I mean, I've only been in this community for about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half. And even in that time, it's changed and people are flooding in. There was a point where I was like, I know all the cube people on Facebook and Instagram. And now I can't keep up. There's more people every day. And so when people talk to me like, oh, I love your stuff, and I was thinking about doing a podcast or thinking about doing a channel, I'm like, go for it, man. Go for it. You'll figure out if you're good at it or not. You'll figure out if people like it, but give it a try. So
it takes work.
It definitely takes work. So yeah, let's talk about that in the beginning. Now, you said you want to do snowboard videos, so you had a little training in that. But what was the early time like? Making content, doing the edits?
Yeah, at first, I always I love editing, and I love photography, and I love shooting film and stuff. I'm not saying I'm good at it, where I was good at it. I'm getting okay at it, but nevertheless, I still love doing that. And so I was like, making videos doesn't feel like work to me. And then the first, real kind of production I did was like this little corny documentary that was like an hour long, and it's called like Discovering Mushrooms in the PNW. And I interviewed a couple people, and like there was some hiccups. I tried doing like voiceover work. There was one part where it says like, it's talking about the Egyptians and how mushrooms were the fruit of immortality or whatever. And I read it wrong because I was like trying to do this in a sound booth that I had made in my garage, and you're just reading off papers. So this is like a whole new thing, right? And I said the fruit of immorality, and like all these people in the comments are like, you idiot, you're so stupid. And I'm like, sorry, dude, I was just reading. I wasn't registering it in my head. So anyways, there's like all these different aspects to it. So I was trying to make documentary style things. And then I guess what's become my most popular style of video, or at least the one that I make the most of, is just me going out in the woods with my dog and just like talking about the mushrooms I'm finding on the side of the trail. And I don't know. I don't, I try now. I'm trying to do like one special project a month, and then stick with this consistency. This is time and repetition. This is a marathon and not a sprint. If you want to be a success on YouTube, or you know build some, be a creator, you got to just keep creating content. And so it can be a grind, especially right now. It hasn't rained in like a month in Washington in the spring, and we had a terrible summer and fall last year. It was so dry, and it's already dry. So and then I got to get more creative. You know what I mean? Because in the fall I could just walk for 20 feet in the forest here and have a 30-minute video talking about the mushrooms they're growing. And so I just talk about everything mushrooms, and on YouTube I keep it pretty family friendly, but there's another side of Mushroom Wonderland that a lot of people don't see, where I do talk about psychedelic mushrooms, although I don't partake personally anymore. I remember Larry Evans said something to the effect of like, I've been to the mountaintop, I don't need to go back, and I kind of like that, you know what I mean? But I don't know how you could be into mycology and not be interested in all of the facets. You know what I mean? So learning about cubensis and all of its phenotypes and different strains and cultivation thereof. It's all super interesting to me. And I think this internet community is getting bigger because a lot of people are being less afraid to talk about this stuff.
Right.
However, I keep it pretty clean on YouTube because I have got a couple of strikes and warnings, and it's become kind of a big thing. Like you said, we're at almost 50,000 subs, and I'd hate to lose the channel.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, let's just talk about mushrooms.
So tell me, I'm curious because I've not gotten a strike yet, though I'm getting close to almost 50-50 on the demonetization. So I don't know if they're scrubbing it. I'll ask for a manual review, and I've had ones that were not about cubes at all not pass and not get. So they claim that a human is doing the re-review process. It's AI at first, then it's a human. And I'm like, okay, I had a gourmet mushroom grower on, and all we did was talk about gourmets, and yet you decided, even when you re-reviewed it with supposedly a human being, it it didn't meet criteria. But then again, they won't tell you exactly in what way, right? It just says it doesn't meet
Very
the
vague.
standards.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get that. So anyway, what videos do you recall, which ones were the ones that got you strikes? And what do you have a theory of what got you the strike?
It's a good question. The first one that got pulled down. See, I've never had one get demonetized. They've never told me that one was demonetized, but they have pulled one down and gave me a warning for dangerous content, where I had found. So we have a psychoactive mushroom that grows here, the woodland psilocybin, and it grows up in clear cuts. And I was up there, and I had discovered some, and then right next to them, I'd found deadly Galerina marginata. So I made a video that was psilocybe folliculosa versus Galerina marginata. They're growing right next to each other in these slash piles, and it was, I even put a disclaimer, and I even said, like, I'm not promoting the use of this, but you know, people are going to do it, so you might as well get educated. This is a safety video, right? This is for public safety, and that they pulled that one down and said it was dangerous, which I thought, okay, whatever. I had some other ones that had psilocybin mushrooms in them, but they didn't pull those down. So
I
I
wonder
don't
if
know.
it was the marginata.
It could
I
be, but
wonder if
they're
it
in a
was
lot of
just
mine.
the fear that you were going, hey, here's the two, and this is this one, and this is that one, and they
Yeah,
just feared that some kid was gonna go out and eat a marginata, and then the dad was gonna like sue YouTube over it or something.
that
I
makes
don't know.
sense, and I've thought of that because we're talking about ingesting some and avoiding others, and they're,
Right.
side by side. So it could be construed as dangerous. I tried to appeal it and say, like, this is a public service announcement more than anything. I think it's smart to have safety videos like this because no matter what, people are going to go out and try to forage their little brown hallucinogenic mushrooms,
Oh yeah.
and people make mistakes, and so, anyways, they pulled that one down. And I did appeal, but like instantly they sent it back and said, we reviewed it. Nope, it's no good. It's gone. And
Yeah.
so that's fine. I started a Patreon, and it's over there now. And I think I put it on Rumble. I don't do anything on that platform really. I don't know. I just started it. But anyways, and then one that I got a strike on kind of recently was titled "The Johnny Appleseed of Magic Mushrooms."
Mm.
Probably a lot of the viewers here on this channel have watched that one. Jeff Glassart and I go out and we plant Ovoidea cystidiata, and show how to like plant plates of mycelium into random wood chip piles around town, and it was pretty cool. And then yeah, it was up for like a year, and it had like 250,000 views. And then all of a sudden one day it was just gone, and they were like, "You have earned a strike. This happens 2 more times, channel's terminated." And I had just recently uploaded one with Caleb Brown and Jeff Glassard, another one where we were at the coast, like filling up super soakers with spores and shooting wood chip beds.
Right.
And so I went ahead and just deleted that one, pulled it off too, just to be safe. Because, and I don't know, there's theories that there might be like haters out there reporting things
That
because
in that case, I would say that one is someone. And you know what? It doesn't have to be from within our community. There are these people that, like they become crusaders for a cause. And I had one message me that was just like, "You're doing the devil's work." And I'm just
oh
like,
wow,
man, do you know how many people I hear this psilocybin is like changing their life for the better? They've suffered their whole lives, and finally now they feel like they have relief and they have healing. And but
right,
but this woman was convinced. She had went on a rant about her. She lost her son to, I don't even remember what drug, but it was a hard drug. And I started trying to engage with her and be like, "Look, you should probably research these drugs that you're seeming to go on the offensive on, because you might find that these are like, first off, you can't overdose from psilocybin or marijuana. You could maybe do a behavior that could cause your death, but in and of
mm,
itself, it's not going to make you overdose." Oh, I mean, she just wasn't hearing any of it. So you just never know if somebody randomly catches that video and just, it's no skin off their back to just report it, right?
right.
It takes them almost no time.
And it is curious how, I've watched other video, like people just straight growing cubensis like right on screen,
Yeah.
and they ain't holding it, and there is no secret about what's going on, and they that video's been up for years,
Untouched.
and yeah, and then sometimes they'll, like the Jeff Glassart, Johnny Appleseed video was up for over a year, and then just one day it just gets yanked, and so you never know. One of my more popular videos, I go out with Alan Rockefeller, and we find some Gymnopolis luteifolius, and then we go find a couple of types of psilocybe. We're like traveling around, and that video is at like 800,000 views or something crazy. And so fingers crossed, but
And
I'm always
untouched. Yeah.
nervous that like someday it's going to get pulled down. Although it is purely like science, we're not glorifying it
Right.
or doing any drugs or suggesting any sort of cultivation of it. Really, it's more like photography and studying for science. But
Right.
when we say for photography and for science, there's always people in the comments going, "Wink, wink, yeah, right, buddy, whatever," and it's all like,
Right.
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
you must not know Alan. Like he's not. I mean, whatever. He is doing science, so
Yeah.
it's different.
But man, see, that's why I'm inclined to think sometimes it's the AI, sometimes it's some legal like discernment of, well, if we post this, here's this hypothetical situation that we fear, for that reason we're going to pull it down. And then the haters theory is, I'm pretty sure that's also a real thing in many
There could be
cases.
that. There's a lot of gatekeeping out here, like in the magic mushroom community, in the wild forage wood loving community. Like
Yeah.
people are can be pretty protective of their patches and like what they think is good harvesting practice and things like that, and there's a lot of like opinions, and
Right.
people get pretty heated about it, and they'll straight report people and badmouth people, um, often based on misinformation, so it's all the more reason why we need content to help educate people, and help people to understand, like, picking those fruiting bodies isn't gonna kill your patch, but when you trample around with 30 of your friends on it, maybe then, right?
Right.
Get
Or
educated.
maybe not. You just don't know. That's like the
Yeah,
debate of I think I watched when you have a video on,
cut or fly.
do you cut or do you pluck? Yeah.
Yeah,
And like I personally think it doesn't matter either way.
yeah.
I don't think it matters. But boy, some people really think that matters.
Oh yeah,
They
yeah.
care about that. They care about what bag you're carrying your mushrooms in. Do you soak them? Do you not? And
Yeah.
they get real heated on those topics. But at the end of the day, we're all going to make our own decisions about how we're collecting mushrooms from the wild. And if one way doesn't work, then we'll probably do the other way.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But yeah, the finding your little honey pot and then making sure nobody finds it is also for sure a real thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. And people are like that about edibles too, and that's fine. And I'm pretty open with it. I have made videos where, like, one, I was picking matsutake mushrooms up in the hills, and there was a couple of somewhat familiar landmarks, I guess, in the background. If you were watching that carefully to the video, you could, and you knew the area, you might be able to figure out, like, in the general area, you know. And I went up there one day, like a year after making that video, and this guy was like, Mushroom Wonderland, dude. And I was like, oh, hey, what's up, man? And started talking to him. And he was like, I swear this is the place where you are in the video. And I've been turning over every log, tearing all this moss up, looking for these mushrooms. And I'm like, no, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you're destroying the habitat. And I felt kind of annoyed, you know what I mean? That there's people out there literally, I'm like, do you, you know, it really is in the journey, not the destination. And I know that's like some cliche, wise words, but it really is like, if you're going to steal somebody's patch, there's no joy in that, man. You got to find your own stuff. And that's where, you know what I mean, I don't know, whatever. But
Yeah, I'm with you.
if somebody's desperate to like find a couple chanterelles and follow me in the woods, and come on, you know, let's do it. Let's make a video.
Exactly. All right, so how about this? So, Mushroom Wonderland. I have been up in your neck of the woods a number of times. We got family in Portland, and we got to Seattle, Vancouver, up in British Columbia, and man, it's a special place. I mean, it Mushroom Wonderland is appropriate, especially the Wonderland. It is just such a magical place. Obviously, the climate most years is pretty ideal for a lot of mushrooms. So maybe talk a little bit. What are the really common, really popular edible mushrooms up there? And then maybe talk about where you might find some of those. How to, like, if you're up in the Pacific Northwest, what are the I don't know, top 3 or top 5 mushrooms you should be looking for that you could take home, cook up?
Definitely. Yeah. So we do have a nice, habitat around here for mushrooms, but contrary to popular belief, people think, I can see Seattle across the water, but it's about an hour boat ride or an hour drive around, kind of centralized in the basin of the Puget Sound, right in the center of Western Washington. And so there's a Cascade Mountain Range, which separates Western Washington from Eastern Washington, and same in Oregon, Western Oregon and Eastern Oregon, two different habitats completely. So we have a microclimate here in the west side where it's moist, and we have huge rainfall out on the coast, which makes for a huge, great mushroom habitat. But in the summer, it is like super dry. In fact, it's drier in the summer than it is most places east of the Rockies. So you guys get way more rain in the summer. You get those big thunderstorms, and it's humid and big mosquitoes, and it gets deathly dry here. So our summer can really be a drag for mushrooms, but the winter is usually pretty temperate, and gets down like around 40, and we still have mushrooms going mainly from September through right now this time of year, because it's been like 80 degrees for like 3 weeks straight, which is insane for here. And it sucks for us mushroom people, because we're like, they're all the ones that you can find. There's some oyster mushrooms, and they're all dried up. But anyways, the most popular ones around here right now, people are finding are morels, black morels. There's a lot of different species of morels that grow across the country, and over here there's about 9 species that live in Washington. And there's a few burn morel varieties that, when I say a burn morel, it means that it grows in a habitat after a forest fire has came through. They love that ground, the alkalinity of the soil, and they just pop up everywhere. And there's all kinds of different debate as to what makes them pop up. Are they mycorrhizal? Do they sense the trees that they live with are dying, so they go off to send off spores? Maybe the trees die and now there's no foliage to get in the way. They realize their spores can make it farther that way. maybe they're endophytic and they live within the roots of the trees until a disturbance, and then that's when they have like sclerotia and turn into actual mushroom fruiting bodies. Anyways, it's really interesting because there's a lot still to be learned. But anyways, people flock to the east side of the Cascade Mountains to hunt for morels. My wife and I went like last weekend. Oh, maybe 2 weekends ago now. I put a video out about a fire that we hiked around in for like 45 minutes, and I found 4 different species of morel growing in one area, which was really cool. So morels, it's all anybody's talking about right now. People drive a long ways, but we see them in the grocery store for $90 a pound. So, and it's in the journey, not the destination. Once again, it's not about having morels on your steak. That's yummy, but I want to go hike. I want to go out in the mountains and find discoveries and hit that honey hole of mushrooms where you're like, oh my god, honey over here, and the excitement of it. It's just the whole thing, So morels are definitely our most popular spring mushroom, and oyster mushrooms. They grow everywhere, just like all across the country. This time of year, it's warm, it's relatively wet, and the logs retain a lot of moisture. So all these we have a lot of red alder and uh, the acer, like the maple trees, and when these are our native hardwoods. When they fall, they're covered in oysters right now. But they bloomed like crazy, and then it got hot and dry. So now there's 3 dehydrated oysters on a lot of those logs out in the woods right now. So I don't know, but they get taken over by worms and larvae so quick. And for being like a mushroom guy or whatever, I'm good, man. There's too many good mushrooms out here to be eating worms for me, so I'm not into that. So that's a nice thing about chanterelles, and that's kind of a nice segue into probably our most popular wild mushroom that grows here is the Cantharellus formosus and Cantharellus subalvatus, the white and the gold chanterelle. And we also have one called Cantharellus roseocanis, or the rainbow chanterelle, that grows out near the coast. But these are chanterelles that grow in a mycorrhiza with the conifer trees we have here, the big Douglas fir and western hemlock trees. And so they grow in the autumn typically. Well, we do have a small flush that usually comes up in the beginning of July. And then they kind of go dormant again until the fall rains come late September and October. And then everybody's going crazy. And so I'm the vice president of the Kitsap Peninsula Mycological Society. And so we have this influx of people always in the autumn, and they join the club and they come to the meeting, and then they're like, how do we find chanterelles, And the beautiful thing is this wonderland we have out here of conifer evergreen forests as far as the eye can see, is that you walk into one of these moss covered forests in the autumn, and everything is dripping and the moss is thick and it's dark green in there, and the bright orange mushrooms are popping out of the moss, and they're pretty easy to spot and real easy to identify. And the bugs don't like our chanterelles. You never find them with worms or anything in them. Not the ones that we have here, anyways. It's a large genus, so there's all kinds of chanterelles that grow with different hosts and experience different levels of insect invasion. But the ones that we have here are really super user friendly and really good to get familiar. They're, like I mentioned, it's like the first mushroom that I ever felt safe picking and eating, and so it's a great one for beginners. And then moving on from there, our lobster mushroom, Hypomyces lactiflorum, really popular one. Out east, you guys have, it associates, I guess, with the Russula brevipees as well, but I've heard of green lobsters out east, and you guys got some interesting ones. We just have the one really bright orange lobster mushroom. So it's a white host mushroom, a large Russula brevipees that grows in a mycorrhiza with an evergreen tree, and then a parasite. It's still to be determined whether it attacks the fruiting body or the mycelium underneath. Both theories are kind of plausible, because I have found fruiting bodies and right near it, some that were parasitized and some that weren't. So it would suggest that if the mycelium were parasitized, that wouldn't they all be parasitized? But and also when you find a mushroom that's half parasitized and half not. Anyways, they're another one, easy to find, easy to ID, and they're really popular here. And then our matsutake, they sell those. There's a big import export kind of commercial business with those. And there's a really interesting article in an old Rolling Stone magazine about how crazy it got in the 90s, like in around Mount Hood National Forest in Oregon, where they were finding like dead bodies and stuff, and people were like literally like mafia stuff over edible mushrooms, because because they were bringing that much money back then. And those, when I was talking about selling mushrooms for beer money or whatever, they were buying them for $20 a pound. You'd find two of these mushrooms and they're unopened, like a number one button with the veil unbroke, and they would give you $60 in cash, and I'd be like, peace, like, yeah, it's a party, you know what I mean? And then we go back out the next day and find more. So fun. And then I think porcini is another one of our big popular ones that grow here, and it also grows all over. Boletus edulis, and those grow out by the coast, but I have found them right locally in lowland Western Washington. They seem to associate with five needle white pine trees, and that is a patch of mushrooms that I will keep a secret. And if I see any obvious landmarks in my videos, I'll take them out. I'll edit those out, because that is one mushroom that I want to keep for myself. And it's not that I'm worried that people are going to pick the patch till it dies. It's just that there's a limited amount of fruiting bodies that come up every year, and if they're in your cooking pot, then I don't get it. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I do love the porcini, but those are probably the 5 or 6 most
Nice.
popular edibles that are here. But there's a lot more edible mushrooms. People are just too scared to try them. There's really good ones.
Right. Well, so what are the lesser known, the harder to find, but favorites for you? Like, I like finding trumpets. I definitely like chanterelles. But they're the trumpets are not too hard to find. I don't know if we really around here, and I'm nowhere near the forager you are, but we're not. I kind of have maybe 4 to 6 that I know when they pop, and I can go get some when I want. But I'm not really. There's no exotic, weird, elusive, hard to find edibles around here. But I'm curious up there. I feel like there's just more genre in general to choose from. So I'm wondering if there's any, like, was there ever one you found where, like, holy, I can't believe I just found this?
Yeah. And it's funny because all of our experiences are different, and so, like, a lot of people think we have such a good fungal diversity here and so many types of different wild mushrooms. But I'm friends with some people on Facebook that are out east in the Carolinas and or out in Wisconsin and Michigan, and the amount of fungal diversity in some of these other places, I'm like super jealous of the East Coast. Y'all have like so many cool amanitas that grow there, and some really beautiful mushrooms that we don't have. But one that we do have, that's I'm also a photographer, and I just like document. I like everything about the mushrooms, and so photography is a huge one. And we have Hydnellum peckii, which is the bleeding tooth fungus. And so peaches or strawberries and cream, some people call it. And it's literally this white little toothy mushroom, and it exudates this bright or dark red guttation. It looks just like blood, and they're super fun to photograph. And it's funny because I see once in a while a picture of one on the internet or like Facebook, and in the comments people are like, "Oh, you're so lucky! Like, that's the most rare mushroom in the world," and all this stuff. But like here in late October, I know places where like the ground is carpeted with them. I mean, maybe that's a little exaggeration, but they're not uncommon here. But always still exciting to find them, and they're different uh, morphology. Some of them are really bloody. Some of them just have like one big pool of blood on them. And then you can lick that off, and it's real kind of spicy tasting, and then you feel super energized from it or something. They're medicinal. But another one is the cauliflower mushroom, the Spirasus radicata. Our western cauliflower mushroom is a really exciting one to find, and they grow at the base of a big conifer stump. And they can have a taproot that's like 6 feet long going down underground. You could dig it out and excavate it like a spinal cord coming off of this big, leafy looking mushroom that is just, they are like a unicorn. And you don't really head out trying to find I mean, it could be in the back of your mind, but I've never gone like cauliflower hunting. I'm always looking for something else. And then it's like, oh, you see one, like the beams like come through the forest, and it's super exciting. You guys have those out there?
I've never seen any. I got to tell you, I think so. I've done way more foraging in Michigan than in Ohio, but the biggest, maybe some polypores about this big. This is as big as I've ever seen. I feel like you guys out there get some some big basidio cart formations. I've never seen that.
Yeah, there are, because of the, the rainforest out near the coast. There's such heavy rainfall. We have some big local reishi mushrooms that grow here,
Right.
and that's one of the more exciting ones for us to find. Also, and my wife really loves going out and finding those because the ones we have here are called Ganoderma organense, and so it's I've heard I've heard local yokels, like old guys, be like, "That's a varnish conch. It has no medicinal value." And then I've also heard people like Christopher Hobbs, who's like a PhD. I heard him talk at Telluride, and he said that the one we have here, our Ganoderma organense, is like one of the most medicinal ones of them all. So
Oh,
yeah, they can grow huge, big shelves on the tree, or some of them will look like ET the way they're growing off of trees, and they look like candy corn when they're young. They're really exciting to find. And then, like last year, I found my first lion's mane, which is not common here.
mm,
So that was definitely like my most exciting find of 2022. I went on a foray with Sydney Ober Singleton. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a really, really amazing mycologist from Oregon. And we went on this hike to make a video, and came across this beautiful lion's mane. It was just like magical. So we took a culture of it and stuff. I don't know if he ever grew it out. I have a dried chunk of it, and he said I could bring it back to life from dry. I'm not that much of a mycologist, so I'm like, but okay, cool. I'm down to try it. So, anyways, yeah. I mean,
do
I
it.
get excited whenever I find any mushroom. Really, I'm just such a nerd that way.
Yeah, yeah. The lion's mane. It's not everywhere. That's for sure.
But some places, like
Especially.
Northern California, they find it all over. They're like, oh, there's one, there's one, there's one. So just depends on your experience. It's like our Hydnellum peckii. You might not find that in other parts of the country, but here we're like, oh yeah, there's one, there's one. Oops, kicked one over. So it just depends on where you are, and what grows around you, what you're familiar with.
That is true. All right. So how about this? You touched on it a little bit, and this has come up in my live chats at other points in time when we talk about foraging. Um, the whole like sustainable foraging practices, the like do's and don'ts if you're going to go out and forage. I was talking to somebody on Facebook the other day, and she is going through like the nth degree to get ready for the foraging season. She's getting clearance for getting permits for this forest and this national park and that national park. And then I know other people who just don't remotely do that at all. Right now, I don't think those people are, they're not raping the forest, but like, where do you stand? What are your thoughts on it? I imagine this has come up in your comments before. Like, what to you does it mean to be appropriate in your foraging etiquette?
Yeah, that's a good one. I really, it's a personal thing. We talked about that cutter pluck thing, and that's always like the first debate when it comes to harvesting techniques. And that video is really informative. Had Paul Stamets actually chime in on it. That was pretty neat. Had Alan Rockefeller, Michael Bugle, all these big names chimed in on the cutter pluck debate. So if you haven't seen that, go to Mushroom Wonderland on YouTube.
Yeah.
Check out the cutter pluck video, and it helps to inform a lot about that stuff. But I think that in a way, it, as long as you're not commercially picking, like, we're children of the earth, and we're meant to be using this kind of stuff. So if you're going to make use of it, I encourage it. I'm like, um I like, Alan says, whenever I find a patch of mushrooms that I like, I make sure to pick every single one of them. And I know that pisses some people off, and I don't necessarily roll that way, but I don't care if people do. You know what I mean? If somebody's like adamant about that they want to cut mushrooms, that's okay. But like, once you start to cultivate, you get to know just how much it doesn't make a difference. And in fact, like when I'm harvesting oysters off of a block, I want to pluck the whole thing and get all of that vegetative growth off of the mycelium so it doesn't mold there. So in a way, either way, it's whatever you want to do. Now, I did go into the forest, and a lady recognized me, and her friend were raking the moss looking for lobster mushrooms, which pissed me off. You know what I mean? I said, no, you can't do that, right? Like, if the mushrooms want you to find them, then they're going to wink at you from under the moss. They'll make themselves known, and that's just straight up destructive. We all have a little voice inside of us, and I think a lot of people choose to ignore that. And I've heard other people that go really far with it, almost to a kind of an amusing extent. I heard this girl say that she had searched for months and months to find this certain mushroom that she just wanted so bad. She was going to collect it for science and voucher it, study it, and do microscopy and all this stuff. And when she went to go grab it, it told her no. And she said, I sat down and I put my head in my hands and I cried, but I didn't pick it because it told me no. And I had to kind of chuckle at that, but it's rang in my head. It was like it was kind of a cool way to look at it. And so go with your heart. You know what I mean? We went morel picking up in a burn, and there's people scrambling around over these charred logs and through the muddy slough, and and they're not finding anything. And I came across this patch, and there was a lot of young ones, and I don't have any real use for those. I'm going to leave those behind. Let somebody else maybe have a chance at them. And so I'm pretty open with it. I mean, if you're gonna I make funny memes on like Instagram about, you know, when the ranger walks up and you have 814 pounds of morels, and it was that Beetlejuice guy from
Right.
Howard Stern or whatever. That was kind of funny, but I overused that, but I was having fun with it. But I don't know. I believe we're children of the earth. I've never been like huge into like abiding by the laws of the land. And if they're like no harvesting of any mushrooms, and you find one porcini, it's going in the backpack. You know what I mean? It's coming home with me.
Right.
So that's just me.
Yeah, it's so we were down, me and my buddy Jeff we're out with this guy Colin, sort of Amish country, definitely very rural, and we were looking for ovoids and morels, whatever else we could find. And so we were checking out by this little section of river, and we had come back and we're just sitting by our cars talking, and then this guy in this big old diesel truck rolls up. He's like, "What are you boys doing?" And we're looking for mushrooms. And he goes, "Mushrooms, huh?" He's like, "That's not usually what people are doing." And we're like, "What do you think we're doing?" You're not shooting up, are you? And
No,
so after we get through that whole thing, we're like, "Hey man, if you want us to leave, because he has to explain, 3 miles that way and 1 mile that way, it's all my land. It's all mine." I'm like, are you trying to tell us you don't want us? Like, we're just walking through, next to this river looking for mushrooms, and if we find it, we'll pick the mushroom. That's literally all we're doing. Oh no, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most people are pretty reasonable. And
Yeah. I've came across, when we were picking hallucinogenic mushrooms in people's yards, back when I was in high school, and we're running through their yards, filling our hat with mushrooms with a flashlight in one hand. People get a little alarmed, and
Sure.
police got called and stuff, and you can't really blame them. I remember one lady, we would be in her yard like on a weekly basis, and she was like, "What is it going to take to get you guys to stay off my yard?" And we were like,
pick them for us, dry them, and
I was like, there's not, we're not hurting anything, ma'am. We don't mean no harm. I don't want any of your stuff. We're totally peaceful. We're just here for the mushrooms. We actually were out by the coast picking azurescens, studying them last fall. And this guy came out, and he had a house like out on the ocean, out overlooking the dunes. And he came walking out, and we saw him coming through the grass, and everybody's like, "Oh, here comes a guy. Here comes a guy." He's, flannel shirt tucked in, and we were like, "Oh, he looked angry or something." We thought he was going to give it to us, and he was like, "What are you guys doing?" And we were just dead honest with him. I was like, we're making a video. We're studying these just amazing mushrooms that you have growing on your back doorstep. These really powerful and beautiful and mysterious hallucinogenic mushrooms grow right here in the dune grass. And he was fascinated, and he was like, "Really? Can you show me them?" And so we were showing him and how to identify, the different features of it. And he was like, "I don't mind you guys at all, as long as you're just, being peaceful, like more power to you." So it's cool to run into people like that, but there's still a lot of mycophobia, and people hear the word mushroom and they just automatically are like, "Druggy, you're up to
Right.
no good," or something.
true. Now, when it comes to foraging, I never take more than I think I'm going to use. I've definitely left, food on the table out in the woods for sure. Now, I remember the first time I started growing oysters, it's just so many mushrooms so fast. And
Yeah.
you're like, what? You start driving to people's houses and giving them away, like, hey, cook these up because you can't eat them fast enough. And I'm not really into like dried oyster mushrooms. I'm not going to rehydrate them and use them in food. I kind of like them fresh, or I'm not going to use them. Um, but yeah, for me, as long as like your story here is great because you're getting some buy-in on your enthusiasm, you're educating, you're showing a respect and a reverence for nature, and man, I mean, I feel like that's going to win a lot of people over. I mean, you'll have your property owner that just does not care and does not want you on their land at all, but you
Yeah.
gotta try.
Yeah, I try to make it clear I'm not on private property, typically picking in county and state parks and even some national parks, you know. But yeah, yeah, just having a lot of fun doing it. And if I irritate anybody or whatever, then I will try not to do that. I'm just trying to be cool with everybody and try not to step on any toes. Life's a lot easier that way.
Yeah. All right, so I got a question for you. As I was getting ready for the show, um, I was pulling up little bits of information from the YouTube channel, and I have just recently discovered the community tab, which I still am radically underutilizing. But anyway, so I click on your community tab, and there's a post from a couple months ago that says, "Thanks everybody, but I'm done. I'm not making videos anymore." And then I go back to your main channel, and I'm like, "Well, but he's made like 10 videos since 2 months ago." So, maybe walk us through that. Like, what was that all about? And you're approaching 200 videos. You've been doing this for a couple years. It's a lot of work. uh, Give me a little background about what led up to I'm not making videos anymore, and then how you came out of that ditch and continued to make videos.
Well, it's pretty simple explanation, really. What led up to that was March. And then the last day of March, the calendar flipped over and it was April 1st. It was April.
Oh, I didn't even look. Oh, so you got me, dude. You got
It
me.
might look out of date now,
You
but it was
got
April
me.
Fool's joke. It might have been cruel, but I
Gotcha.
was like, I'm hanging it up. I'm done. No way. No way.
uh
I'm having way too much fun with this, man. So I'm not going anywhere. But a lot of it, it was kind of like after I did that, I was because another creator that I watch, he did something similar, and I was like, oh, that's
Nice.
kind of fun, and I did it. And then like some people were like, good riddance, good luck out there, or
Wow.
whatever. And I was all like, oh, come on, man. But a
Man.
lot of people were like, "Oh no, we're gonna miss you. We love your videos," and so it was kind of like a way to pander for some kind
Right.
of validation, But
Sure.
there was a lot of like really kind words, and it really like just was really cool to see how everybody was like, "No, don't do it," And I was like, "It's April Fools," and then the relief that came with it and stuff. So,
Nice.
no, I'm having fun with Mushroom Wonderland, and just keep. I'm just gonna keep making videos. In fact, trying to trying to get in the works of doing more traveling and
Yeah.
going and seeing different areas of the country and stuff. I have a full busy life right now with kids and a wife and sports, and I have a construction company, and then I forage videos, I mountain bike, and I stay up till midnight or 1 o'clock burning the midnight oil editing. I go to bed, I wake up, I go on the grind and just do this over and over and over. And but I'm not burning out. It's weird. The more I do, the more I can do. It seems like. And so I'm always out there. Today I went for a 6 mile mountain bike ride. I got my Canon and my tripod and everything tight in my backpack, and I'm ready to shoot videos. And it's become. In the beginning, it was kind of like I'm just going to shoot a live shaky video, and whatever I find, I find. And if
Right.
I screw up, then I screw up. And a lot of my videos are more like compilations now where when, especially when the weather is getting drier, I can't just go out and find a whole video's worth of mushrooms. So a lot of times it'll be the whole week um,
Hmm.
all the foraging I did, and I found random different mushrooms. So the magic of editing makes it look like, I'm just on one magical wonderland walk, when a lot of times I don't know why I'm revealing all these my behind the scenes secrets to you right now, but there you go.
I love it. I love it. I had my first I don't think I might not have told anybody this either. But I recorded Missy Myco recently, and I had something come up in the middle of taping her, and so I said, "Oh my god, I gotta leave. I'm so sorry. Can we finish this tomorrow?" She's like, "Of course." So then she shows up the next day, and I'm like, "Would you mind doing a wardrobe change? We need to match."
Oh,
Like, so she goes and
continuity.
pulls it out of the hamper, and I'm like real particular. I'm like, "Can you move the camera?" And we're trying to line it up just so you know. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the magic. People don't want to hear, they really don't actually want to hear all the little difficult, mundane things you have to do to make an entertaining video. They just want the entertaining video. So,
Right. And so I'm trying to, like, today I just released another video that was um a little more along the lines of like ASMR. So I'm just having fun with my videos. I get some pushback in the comments. Sometimes people are like, "What are you doing?" I made one video where it was from agar to harvest in a monotub of cubensis, and
mhm.
it was like a 3 minutes of like quick action shots of like, here it is, spray paint the bottom of the tub, your liner, your filter patches, boom, drop in the sub, mix it up. Here come, boom, time lapse of the mushrooms. And then people are like, "You're the wild mushroom guy. Don't be doing this. Other people are already doing this." And I'm like, that's fine,
Wow,
dude. I'm just having fun. You know what I mean? This is my channel. I'm just like, if nobody was watching, I'd
right.
still make the videos. Seriously.
That's hilarious. Well, so when I worked in Hollywood, I worked for this guy for a while, and we had a project. We were trying to get a director. We got a soft pass. They wanted a director attached before they greenlit the project, and so we're like, trying to attach the biggest director we can. And at one point in time, Wes Craven wanted to direct our like heartfelt drama, and we
Really?
are like, what? And then
That's
come to
amazing.
find out, like, he's was like an English literature dude, and like
It was actually less Craven. It was a different guy.
Wes Craven.
I know. I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
oh, no, it was literally Wes Craven. And he met with this producer guy I work for, and oh, they were all about like they just clicked, and it was like, yeah, this might be the guy for this project. And they bring it into, can't remember if this was Fox Searchlight or where it was, but anyway, they bring it in, and they're like, yeah, we let me explain how this goes. He makes horror movies. We don't ever want to see him do anything else. It's like when what's his face? Jim Carrey was trying to, be Mr. Serious, and he just went too far goofy that it
Yeah,
was really hard for people to take him more seriously than that. And so
totally.
that's what happened. You've gone in the woods so deep, and you've done that
Yeah.
that you just, it makes people uncomfortable. Like, wait, I don't understand. Why are you like,
Yeah,
it just weirds people out, I think. And not everybody, but there's bound to be somebody who's just
yeah.
like, I don't get it. Why are you not just doing another in the woods video?
Right,
I
right.
think it's
Yeah.
cool. Do whatever.
I've tried
Make it
not
a,
to pigeon my hole myself into one corner too much,
yeah,
because there's so many different facets of mycology, and
right,
so there's a couple of different communities. There's a huge community that kind of I fell in with just these mycologists and mushroom geeks that are all about mushroom taxonomy and identification and morphology and wild mushroom ID. And then there's like a whole, the whole like drug world, like cubensi world that and then bringing those two worlds together, like I'm kind of somewhere in the middle there. So on my different platforms there's different content, and I do
right,
try to keep it pretty family friendly. You notice I never cuss or anything like that on YouTube, because a lot of people go, "Oh, my kid loves your channel," or whatever. I had some friends and their son was like 9 years old, and they're like, he watches every episode of Mushroom Wonderland. And so I like try to keep that in my mind, and maybe someday who knows, Netflix or Paramount or somebody's going to
There
come
you
after
go.
you like, let's make a series. Like, I don't know, so.
Make a series, but you need to be on the edge of collapse at every moment. So, like, how do we make it edgier? Oh, dude, I worked in Hollywood. That's what they do.
Yeah.
They go, we love your project, and now that we bought it, we're going to tell you all the shit we don't actually like about it, and all the
Right.
things we want
Right.
to
I
change
can
it.
imagine. And
The
I watch a lot of like those, it's like ASMR videos of like building a shelter, like 3 days in the wild by yourself. And even like fishing and hiking videos, I get into those sometimes. And if you look at the numbers on some of those outdoor cooking videos, will have like 20 million views.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there is such a huge niche. There's a lady from like central China that I subscribe to, and she doesn't say a word, but she's got beautiful cinematography, goes out in the woods, forages mushrooms, picks like baskets full, and then goes home and cooks up this amazing meals and feeds the whole village. And like, she's got 25 million views, like average on every video. And so, I'm trying to like eke toward that. Like, I want to do like kind of ASMR. Like, if you're home on a rainy day with your cup of soup and you want to sit down with Mushroom Wonderland and like just go into the woods, I want that. I want it to be like comfort and relaxation videos as well as education and recreation. And so, I don't know what I'm doing, man. I'm just having fun and doing it all. So,
Yeah, so that's interesting you bring that up, because I think once you start making content, you realize that it is a real job just coming up with content.
yeah.
It's easy to just go hike the woods, but there's a point where you're like, okay, well, I found that last week. So obviously that can't be in the video this week necessarily, unless they come up with a new spin on it or
Yep. Yeah.
do something else with it. Yeah, that's always the challenge. So then as you're watching these other things, because once you create content, then you start watching content differently. You see everything they're doing as a choice, and it's really easy to go, man, how do I become Mr. Beast for mushrooms? How do I
Right.
become how do I become Joe Rogan for podcasts? And um yeah, that's I mean, do you ever watch those guys? It's just like two dudes, it's all sped up, and they're just like digging holes in the ground, and flash forward a month later and they've built a palace.
The guys that make pools, like
Yeah,
swimming
like
pools? Yeah,
underground pools and all that.
yeah.
And they're like, and I looked into them, and I know there's no way those are the guys that are reaping the rewards of of
No.
that channel, but they're getting 100+ million views.
Oh, I know.
And you're like, dude, you probably paid those guys like 20 grand total.
Right.
And
Right.
came back a
They have
month
dirt
later.
floors in their house. And
Yeah, maybe the
oh, well, and I'm sort of a competitive person, and so I get excited reading the analytics of YouTube
yeah,
and watching the stats and like the audience and the retention and like where do people stop paying attention and where did I lose you and how can I keep you watching longer, and really it's not about money or anything, or fame. It's like, I love making videos and I love a challenge. And so when I make videos and I get 5,000 views or something, and then I made one a couple weeks ago and it's at 250,000 views, it's
right.
exciting. It's just as exciting as finding a nice patch of beautiful mushrooms in the woods is to make a video that people really like and just having fun.
Yeah, I think I might have talked about this before, but that guy Gary V, he's like one of them little content creator guys on YouTube. He had a short form video that I watched one time, and basically the person asked him, so you consult for all these major corporations on creating content and having social media presence and all that. So talk about like what you need to do. If say I'm a big corporation and I just hired you, what would you tell us to do? And he said you have to immediately start making 200 pieces of content a day. And
Hmm.
the interviewer goes, "What? What do you mean 200 pieces a day?" And he's like, "Yeah, over all the platforms, major corporations should be putting out hundreds of pieces of content." And she just was perplexed. She was like, well, but why? Like, wouldn't you just want to focus on quality and not quantity? And he goes, you don't get it though, do you? The internet will decide that. The internet decides what it likes. If you only put out one piece of content a day, it's either going to like it or it's not going to like it. And that's it. If you put out 200 pieces of content, the odds of you actually finding, no, it's okay.
My puppy is. Look, stop, man.
We just got a golden retriever, so I have the same problem now.
Yeah, I have this little. Where is he? Little German short-haired pointer.
Oh, hunting dog.
And if you watch Mushroom Wonderland, you know Gunner. Hey, stop. Hold on, sorry. If if you watch Mushroom Wonderland, you know Gunner, and so the puppy torments him, and then Gunner just stole his rawhide. So I'm trying to keep them busy while I do this because, yeah, it's busy. So.
Yeah, so well, I'll probably just cut that out. But anyway, I'll just tell you. So yeah, I just love that idea about you don't like the old. I don't know if you've ever read old books about advertising and marketing agencies and all that, right? It was all about hiring the most creative ad agency because they were going to come up with the "Where's the Beef" commercial for you, or they were going to come up with the Geico Gecko, and right, and you were going to it was going to be really good for your company. And the old model was that these smart creative people just sat in a room until they came up with this brilliant idea that they all decided was a brilliant idea.
Right.
And now, but how the fuck do you know?
Exactly.
How do you don't know? So why bother? Same with music, right? Just fucking put it out there.
Right.
Just get it out there. They'll decide.
I call it the spaghetti on the wall theory. You know, you just throw it on the wall and see what works. You know, one video I go out and I did a TikTok on it and a short on Instagram, and I'm still yet to release the full length one, but it's totally, just nature sounds. But I walk in the forest and mushrooms and plants are identified on the way to this beautiful, pristine alpine lake where I build a small fire and I cook myself a bacon sandwich. And then I put the fire out and I make the forest back to where it was. And then I walk back out into the forest. And
they'll eat that up.
I just thought it was super fun to make, and I have a feeling there's going to be some people who are like, what is this bacon sandwich? Who eats bacon? You pig killer and whatever, I don't know. There's always somebody on the internet. So you just got to have.
Yeah, the trolls are everywhere.
But I tell you what, man, this is such a cool community. The mushroom people are like so accepting and loving for the most part. Once in a blue moon, there's probably been a handful, less than 5, like real haters, like people that were just in my comments, just talking trash, to the point where I'm like, what is your problem, man? Like, I'm going to have to block you from the channel. I don't know what this guy, he was like, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're saying. And I'm like, sorry you feel that way. And he's all like, your mom should be sorry. And I was like, all right, dude, like, you got to go, whatever. And, people are weird, man. And the bigger the video, like the Alan Rockefeller videos, there's some real weirdos that comment on that, but it's really entertaining to read the comments sometimes.
It's fascinating what they think you are gonna like. They make a comment and you're like, what did you think I was gonna do the thing you told me to do, or the thing that wasn't to your like, I don't know. They just want to say something. But most people really do say nice things and supportive things and seem to appreciate the content, and that's what keeps me doing it. I'm assuming that's a major motivating factor for you. It's great to hear people say they like your content.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's super. It just inspires me to do it more. Like we were up foraging in the mountains a couple weeks ago, and like 3 different groups of people we walked by, they were like, it's Mushroom Wonderland, dude, what's up? And like wanted pictures and stuff, which was like really cool to just know that like in my little world, that there's a lot of us, but it's a small world still. You know what I mean? I'd run into somebody and they're like, oh, I follow you on Instagram and my name is such and such, and I'm like, oh, I like all the stuff you put up. You know what I mean? It's a cool community. It really is. whether it be the gourmet edible foraged mushrooms or the cubensis crowd, you know, they're everybody's just super cool. So don't prove me wrong in Micah's Geeky's comments here. I'm gonna be checking.
Okay, so I got a question for you.
Yeah.
This might be the most risque question I ask. So do you ever just go foraging and leave the camera at home? Or are you now at the point where you just can't, you gotta take it?
Well, I always have my phone with me, so
okay.
I do have a camera with me most of the time. These days, not really, man. The camera is always with me. I've been that dude, like even in high school, like I was a skater and me and my buddies wanted to always make skate videos and then in the winter snowboard videos. And I was always that dude, like with the camera at the party and stuff where people are like, put it away, you know?
Right.
And so I don't know. It's kind of paying off in a way that I've always been like that. And so I'm always like, what if I don't bring it? And then I'm gonna definitely stumble across something amazing. So
Yeah.
I stay strapped, you know.
Man, all I know is when I'm mountain biking, you know, the camelback is probably all I'm putting on my back. The thought of I would be too freaked out because I don't know about you, but man, I gotta hit the jumps. I gotta do the crazy stuff, and I mean, I'm definitely getting old. When I fall, it hurts a lot more. But man, if I was carrying around an expensive camera, I think I would struggle. The mountain biking versus the worrying about my camera would cause me some issues, I think.
There's definitely that, and I love to mountain bike, and I enter in races. I'm kind of competitive with it, and I totally love it. And went out riding today, and there are, you know, in that respect, I don't really consider that foraging though, because I'm going 15 or 20 miles an hour through the woods. I can't really see what's on the side of the trail too much, but there are definitely days where I'm like I'm only bringing my key fob with me and that's it. You know what I mean? I got a water bottle on the bike, but just like when I snowboard, I've been an avid snowboarder my whole life. And I don't want to wear a backpack. I don't want to be weighted down with crap. Now I rarely crash and land on my back. So usually my camera is wrapped up in a sweatshirt in my backpack, and then I cinch it really tight to myself if I must bring the camera, which I do sometimes. Especially this time of year, it's getting tough to find mushrooms. And so if I come across something, I want to be able to set up the camera and get some nice shots of it and stuff like that, you know. And so I don't know, it's always a toss up, but there's definitely times where I live like in town. And so on these beautiful nights, and we get these peachy sunsets over the the Olympic Mountains, and I just go zoom on the streets, and I won't bring a camera or anything in that, you know.
Very cool. All right, so I there's something about you that reminds me of my buddy Ed Grand, and that's this: you really are the merging of the serious mycophile, you know, the mycologist, the scientist, the I know all the Latin names, I know the distinguishing features kind of guy, and then but I like cubes. You know, have a respect for that community. Kind of having those come together, I think, is a new thing these days. I think maybe those people existed, but they were very careful, you know, to hide their interest in psilocybin containing mushrooms. Maybe you want to talk a little bit because you've talked about being that guy and you know, growing cubes now, and um, just your thoughts about those two worlds.
Yeah, I think if you're a true and genuine mycophile, it's hard to just be interested in psilocybin mushrooms and not be curious when you're walking down the trail or in in your lawn and see a patch of mushrooms growing, to not have a curiosity about them or know what they, you know, kind of want to know what we call them and what their uses are. And I don't know what it is. I have this innate ability to remember song lyrics and mushroom information, which I don't know where that comes from, but it's kind of cool. But but I think those two worlds are, you know, they often don't come together, and then
Yeah.
and it surprises me sometimes. And being a member of a long standing mycological society when I talk about psilocybin mushrooms, sometimes it's taboo even in the club, you know, because
Right.
they're a little more old fashioned and they're like, whoa, we're talking about chanterelles and boletes here. And it's like, fine. But I do the programming for our mycological society. So I bring on speakers and it's becoming, you know, just this year, I really kind of started pushing the envelope and just saying, like, can we have a whole presentation about psychedelic mushrooms? Like, isn't it time that we talk about it? Um, Now, like I said, you know, in my teenage years, I ate a ton of mushrooms. It's probably been like 10 years since I had a psilocybin trip. And I've got so much going on and I've got kids and
Right.
businesses and I'm just, you know, it's just not a time in my life when I can ever have that kind of time off. I don't know. We went to Telluride last year and considered it, but I don't know. I'm fine the way that I am. But I'm still fascinated, you know, and I love all the the ID features of psychedelic mushrooms that grow wild here in the PNW. Hopefully, we'll get to talk about that. I have like
Oh
a
yeah.
little slideshow presentation about,
This is the segue right here.
but also cubensis and the cultivation thereof. You know, I knew about those from the Grateful Dead parking lot. You know what I mean? Like when I was a kid, and we would just get a crusty old mushroom from somebody, and pull it out of their pocket, and you choke it down with your beer, and then go on a wild ride for a few hours. You know, and back then it was so mysterious. You know, before that was pre-internet. I'm 43 years old. I think we're about the same age, or a little over me, but you know, in the mid 90s and early 2000s, there wasn't internet, you know, and so I think the people who grew cubes were like super secretive about it. They wouldn't
Oh yeah.
tell you all the processes, and it was just it's always been a really mysterious thing, and it took me years to like. I don't know why. I think I'm a pretty smart guy, but I don't know why it took me so long to like understand the concept of mycelium growing on grain, and then you can add that grain to a substrate, and if it doesn't have a lot of competition, then it can grow out into that substrate, and when the time is right, it's going to create fruiting bodies, and the whole process is was mysterious to me, and so I think just in the spirit of knowing everything I can about mushrooms is that yeah, you got to throw a couple of grows together, and I met some guys last summer that sent me home with a whole bunch of uh, fun stuff from Telluride, and you know, and then just started playing around and learning to grow them and giving them away to people who could use them for their mental health and whatnot, you know, but just basically for fun. So I've run a couple of grows of cubensis and have had whatever, same success, you know, beginner's luck turns into contamination nightmare, turns into now, you know, then struggling to, and then triumph again after all the contamination. And, but still like, you know, in the beginning, it was all like, oh, this is so easy. Well, you know, I should have been doing this years ago.
Right.
And then all of a sudden just green mold on everything. And I'm doing everything. And I let the pressure cooker run dry, and I learned everything the hard way, you know. So just
You've had the rites of passage, all the basic rites of
oh man,
passage. Yes.
yeah.
But
And
isn't
then
there something special? I mean, this is a thing I talk to people about a lot. For me, particularly, like when you're foraging, you just happen upon the mushroom in the state that it's in, whether it's, if you're unlucky, it's withered and died or full of, worms and maggots. If you're really lucky, it's prime time and you can harvest it and you can eat it for dinner that night. Maybe it's, just starting to form its fruiting body. But when you come upon it, it's just in the state it's in, and you make a decision to leave it or take it or photograph it or whatever. But when you grow them, you get to watch that whole process, in little glimpses over the course of maybe a week.
mhm.
I just can't get enough of it, man. I think it's just so fun to watch them grow.
Oh, it's really fascinating, and then
Isn't it?
especially when you start to see like weird mutations, and then trying to clone those on agar, and just to see
Yeah.
how weird we can get with it. You know what I mean? It's a lot of fun, and so I bought a little flow hood, and I collected.
Oh, you're all in now, dude. You got the flow hood. It's official.
Yeah, I got it a few months ago. I've kind of collected parts here and there, and I watched a ton of Southwest Mushrooms. You know, Magic
Yeah.
Mike over at Southwest
Mhm.
Mushrooms is like such a good YouTube channel. And he just totally, I've always been a gardener back in the day. I used to grow a lot of weed and stuff like that. And so watching him grow and those beautiful mushrooms that he'd be growing, I'm like, I need to learn to do that, you know? And so I just started just mimicking his sterile technique, just as basic as it gets, you know, and like a lot of, you know, a lot of people would be like, this is old school using rye berries and doing, you know, doing the cocoa core vermiculite. Like it's all just very basic, but it's tried and true and it works good. And that's why people have done it for a long time and they keep doing it, you know?
Right.
And so I don't know. I feel like start from the ground up, learn through experience, and then you don't have to argue with anybody because you know what you're talking about. And there's, you know, there's not much room for debate when there's facts in front of you, you know. I don't know if you know Anna McHugh, but she does really cool drawings of mushrooms that she finds, and I think she's out in your area or something. But
What's her name? I don't know if I know her.
Anna McHugh, she's got a YouTube channel also. Yeah, check her out on her YouTube channel. She knows a lot. She's out there on the East Coast, but she does cool drawings and really good stuff. And she's hilarious.
Yeah, recently I forget what Facebook group it was, but somebody was saying, "Hey, here's this micrograph," and I forget what kind of cystidia they were looking at, some weird rare, right? You know how the mycophiles get
Oh yeah,
this weird shape structure. Let's talk about it, even though nobody else is talking about it. And he was like, "Yeah, I don't think it's right." And then he consulted like the holotype micrograph and was like, "Here's the photo, and this doesn't look anything like it." And then some other guy in Europe from somewhere who's like a PhD mycologist was like, "Yeah, I look at those all fucking day under the microscope. That's exactly what they look like." So it
yeah,
was a case of like he was going off the drawing and it didn't match the drawing, but then this guy who's looking at that mushroom all the time was like, "Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like."
yeah,
So I think all that stuff. Now, of course, that's kind of rooted in the camp of you know what pissed Ed Grand off so bad that night. But um, I mean, there's a lot of great things that are about to happen because we can get real specific and real serious about, you know, genome sequencing and all that kind of stuff. It's already shuffling the deck taxonomically for a lot of stuff. It's like, oh, you thought it was over here. Nope, we're gonna put it way over here now. I
right.
don't know what that, you know, that really maybe only matters for the taxonomists,
That's it.
but it's still fascinating to see that stuff happen.
That's it. And there's this one little tidbit, you know, I don't know if you ever heard of Eckhart Tolle, but
Oh,
he's,
oh yeah. Mhm.
yeah, you know, he's a kind of a spiritual
In the
guru guy.
now, man. Yep. In the moment.
He's awesome, but he said something that affected me once, and he was talking about observing plants in their habitat, and that rather than saying, you know, this is poison oak, we say we call this a poison oak.
Mhm.
That's not what it is. You know,
Right.
that's just what our meek little minds can. We've designated it with these
Right.
grunt noises that come out of our mouth. You know, so Amanita muscaria. You know, is that what it is? Well, that's what we call it. You know, and that kind of opens the door for like, you know, there's different subsections of Amanita, different, you know, different little strains, if you will, of Amanita muscaria. But if you say Amanita muscaria, you kind of, you know, that's what we call that mushroom. And if it helps people to understand what you're talking about, that's
Right.
all we're trying to do here. It's just language.
Yeah.
Mushrooms don't change. It's just our understanding of them.
Yeah. Yeah, but we love to name things. I mean,
Yeah.
you just want to give it
Yeah.
a name.
You know, we insist on it, which,
If you don't, then you have to just walk around with it your whole life.
yeah.
Hey, have you seen like it doesn't have a name, but this thing, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
this thing, what's it called? It's right here. You don't need a name for it. Just there it is. That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. We can't do that.
So, you know, in another
We have to
debate,
have that.
like the cut or pluck debate, another debate that people get into is the common names. You know, we need more common names, and that's fine. You know, it's cool. There's a book, Mushrooms of British Columbia, that was written by Andy McKinnon and Kem Luther, up here in BC, just north of where I am, and they have all these super cute names for the common names. You know, some of the mushrooms didn't have common names, and so they just made them up and put them in their book, which I think is super entertaining and cool. but really, you know, with the amount of different species and stuff, I still think scientific names are just the way to go. And it's fun, you know, once you start to learn like what these, you know, each syllable of the Latin words usually means something. And you'll notice in taxonomy, they start to get repeated over and over. And then you go, wait, what does flav mean? Right? I see flavescence and flav in a lot of different words. And you can look that up and say, oh, that means yellow, you know? Oh, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of these are describing the mushroom. So people are like, Avoideo cystidiata, why does it have such a long name? And it's like, well, it has ovoid shaped cystidia. You know, it totally describes morphological features of the mushroom. So in a way, it's like a foolproof way of being able to describe a mushroom with its name. It's genius, you know.
Right.
So all those
And
old names that are named after mycologists will probably go the way of the dodo eventually, and we'll just use morphological characteristics.
and you just you have to use Latin because otherwise, you know, the common name in Russia is going to be different than the common name in the Pacific Northwest, and
Yeah.
you got to have some common ground, at least from that scientific perspective. All right, man. So I know we were talking about your program director for your local mycological society, trying to push that envelope, sort of, you know, as psilocybin containing mushrooms are becoming less and less taboo, trying to push that programming a little bit. And you've recently done a presentation on psilocybin containing mushrooms in the Pacific Northwest. You were kind enough to send me the PDF. So let's pull it up and let's walk through it. I think a lot of people uh, uh, watching would love to see what's out there up in your neck of the woods.
Yeah. Let's do it. So yeah, this is just a like a little slideshow I did for the Kitsap Peninsula Mycological Society annual mushroom show that was at Olympic College in Bremerton, Washington last November. And so there's a few different speakers. We had Daniel Winkler, if you've ever heard of him. He's an author. He's got a few books out. The most recent one was Fruits of the Forest. And then the president of the club, David Ansley, gave a talk, and then I gave this one. And each of the talks, the rooms were packed, and so it was pretty entertaining. And so basically, I'm just talking about the wild psychedelic mushrooms that grow here in Washington State.
Nice.
So there's who am I? Hopefully, you've got to know me throughout this podcast, but I'm the vice
But
president.
here you are holding big mushrooms.
That's true. Yes.
That's very cool.
Yeah, that's kind of a younger picture of me. I think in my early 20s, holding those two big Lexinum mushrooms there. I've got a Seahawks hat on, repping the Northwest. And there's a picture of a big stump in the Hoh rainforest with Latiparus conifericola, our conifer-loving chicken of the woods. They look like little chicken nuggets popping out of that log. And it was crazy. We harvested those, and all I had was a plastic garbage bag. It was like 80 degrees that day. Put them in this plastic bag in my backpack. By the time we got back, they were like, it was like fermented cantaloupe or something. It was weird. Like it was so funky. We just threw them out in the bushes. I was like, there is everything in my body is like, do not eat those.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that was weird. Up on top, Amanita muscaria, variety Flavi vulvata. This one's growing with some aspen trees right around the local courthouse. So uh, I don't know. It's probably brought in with those trees, but they're huge. And I'm not doing that whole force perspective thing too much. Like I'm not holding it all up close to. I mean, that's a huge. These caps are like 14 inches around. They're monstrous. And then down below, a Boletus edulus, probably one of my favorite mushrooms to forage. That one's pretty old, probably full of worms, but you can find the younger ones. They're good to eat. So, anyways, I make mushroom videos on the channel Mushroom Wonderland. You can find me on Instagram, mushroom.wonderland. TikTok, Mushroom Wonderland with a 0 for the O, which sucks. And I need to do something else there, but it's fun. And Facebook at Mushroom Wonderland. And so, anyways.
And we have all that in the description too.
Okay, cool.
We'll make sure, you know, when that I learned that early on. If I didn't have everybody's links to everything. That was like the first question the next day was,
Oh
how
yeah,
do I find this person? So yeah, yeah, it's all there.
totally.
Yep.
And if you want to see bonus videos, behind the scenes videos, hanging out with like Alan Rockefeller and Hart Singer and these people like up in the like behind the scenes and just filming, you can find that stuff on Patreon as well as Cubensis videos and other
There you
magic
go.
mushroom videos. Patreon.
Yeah, man, I just started doing Patreon. I think it's great, and it solves the problem of YouTube of just what do you do with content that YouTube doesn't seem to be okay with. You go
Exactly.
to Patreon. That's what you do.
Exactly. And I don't have a lot of followers there. I'm new there. I don't even really know what I'm doing, but I keep uploading these videos and then putting bonus ones because people buy a $5 membership. I feel
Yeah.
like they should get a little extra bonus love, So go to Patreon, check out those videos because there's special stuff. But so this first slide here, Amanita versus psilocybin. A lot of people think that Amanita muscaria, like T-shirts and posters that you see at the mall, and it's all like magic mushroom, and then it shows a picture of an Amanita, and it's two different things, right? The iobotanic acid and the muscimol that you can find in the Amanita genus of in the section Amanita of the Amanita genus is a hypnotic and a sedative and a depressant, and it's not the same as the hallucinogenic that psilocybin is. There's people I'm sure that watch this that know all of the intricacies of the chemical makeup, but they're completely different mushrooms. You're not going to get the same effect from Amanita that you're going to get from psilocybin. And traditionally, when people talk about magic mushrooms, they're referring to psilocybin mushrooms.
Right.
Although, they do think like, people have used Amanita muscaria for a long, long time for its hypnotic effect, and its it's dissociative, sedative like effects. But there's a reason why it's not illegal, and because I think most people find it unpleasant and they don't repeat it again, and there's just not a market for it because it's not pleasurable. Whereas psilocybin is a very powerful and amazing chemical that's found only in mushrooms and in certain mushrooms, and so we're lucky enough here in the Pacific Northwest to have uh, about 12 different species that grow wild here, some that are local and native, and some that were introduced but grow as natives. And so the world has over 250 species of psilocybin. As you all know, Psilocybe cubensis is probably the most commonly cultivated one, easiest to cultivate, most weight for the money and for the effort, and so it always worked out good for people selling them as drugs and stuff like that. But because of the long history of cultivation with it, it's just still the most popular cultivar. But a lot of people are getting into the wood lovers and learning how to grow these mushrooms on wood chips and cultivate these outdoor wood loving mushrooms that we have here in the PNW, and they're doing it indoors on wood chips and stuff and just for fun. So, and I imagine someday when this all becomes legal, that it'll be like strains of cannabis or whatever. There's going to be different strains of, you can have the pelliculosa next week, try the stuncy next time, just get some cubensis or whatever. So big difference there, Amanita versus psilocybin. Wanted to clear that up. And just to mention, a lot of the people on this channel probably really well versed in psychedelic mushrooms, whereas this presentation was at a college. There were kids in the audience, old people. I mean, this is for kind of for the newbie. So
Right.
So
Well, but I get a fair amount of new people. I think there's plenty of people watching this that the slide would be beneficial. It is worth. I mean, it's really true. Pop culture wise, right? The Amanita is the vision, right?
Yeah.
That is the poster child for quote magic mushrooms. But then our community knows, yeah,
It's
cubensis
different.
is what we think of.
And Amanita is just so iconic. If you ask any kid in the world, hey, draw me a mushroom, they're going to draw you an
That's
Amanita
what they're going to
muscaria.
draw. Yeah,
Even
100%.
adults. And so
Yeah.
these pictures were taken by me, not the two drawings. Those are generic internet things. But the red Amanita muscaria was taken, and the picture was taken about 2 miles from where I am. And on the right is our western panther cap. That's Amanita pantherinoides here on the west coast, and it's in the Maripantherina group of brown capped Amanita, section Amanita mushrooms, and they contain similar psychoactive compounds. But and then down below, you can see the bluing on the stem of those mushrooms in the bottom left corner.
Right.
And if you're driving while you're listening to this podcast, maybe come back and look at that. But those are psilocybe ovoideo cystidiata that are in that picture, and those I think you have them growing out where you are in Ohio and on the East Coast. Those aren't native to here, but they are growing around here in certain places. And then on the right is a picture that I took. Alan Rockefeller was right next to me. That picture is on Wikipedia, but through the lens of a different camera. We had two cameras set up. That's psilocybe pelliculosa. And in that one, I kind of lightroomed it up. I deleted all the colors except for the caramel colors that were in that picture. You could see that really flocco stipe and that really, it's like fuzzy looking. And that was kind of an unusual cluster of the pelliculosa. They often grow a little bit more singularly, but in big troops. We'll talk about that. So,
nice. All right, here we go.
So the first modern discoveries in the Pacific Northwest, and so Evergreen State College, a really famous college here in Washington, in Olympia. That's the capital. It's about 40 minutes from here. Michael Bugh, the guy in the top left corner, I've had him on as a guest at our club. We've corresponded a lot via text and email and stuff, and he's been in a couple of my videos. I like to call him my friend. He was the longest time mycology professor at Evergreen State College, and some of his students came up after hearing about Maria Sabina and the discovery of magic mushrooms in Mexico back in the late 60s and stuff. And so these students approached Michael Bugh and said, "Do we have psilocybe mushrooms that grow here?" And he said, "I don't know. I've never heard anything about it. I've heard about the Amanita muscaria." And so a few of these students went out with a vague understanding of the morphological features of psilocybe, and they went out in search of finding these mushrooms that they might be growing here because we have such a wet climate that could be suited for it. And those students of his were Paul Stamets, Jeremy Bigwood, Jonathan Ott. They all went on to write books, all pretty famous mycologists, especially Paul Stamets, arguably the most famous mycologist in the world. But so these guys went out and started to bring mushrooms back to Dr. Bugh at the school and say, "What is this? It's staining blue. We have a removable gelatinous pellicle. It's got this dark purple brown spore print." And so, being the good students they are, I think they experimented on them with themselves. You can watch a lot of Paul Stamets videos, and he recounts experiences finding psilocybe mushrooms, like growing outside the police station and around courthouses in Seattle and stuff back in the 70s. And so really cool stories. But that's kind of, it wasn't until the 70s that people really even discovered that there were hallucinogenic mushrooms growing here. The indigenous people don't have a lot that I've really tried hard to uncover any information from the native Indian tribes around here, which there's a lot. And they don't really talk anything about them. So as far as we know, it was like the 70s before people started to realize that there's hallucinogenic mushrooms growing here in the PNW. When I say PNW, I mean Pacific Northwest.
I was just talking to a guy on Instagram, Mind Spirit Contact, and he's down in Mexico. He is indigenous people, and he said it's his understanding that the northern tribes really didn't mess with fungus. He said that's what his old ancestral knowledge has been passed down, is that was a southern thing. The Native Americans more in the South were inclined to do that. Now, but God, if they're growing up there, you'd think they'd have figured it out. But who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. Maybe it really was just a southern thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's curious, but at least there's no like written documentation of it anywhere. And so in the background there, you can see Evergreen State College, and then there's the beautiful landscape of the PNW. It's just covered in these beautiful Douglas fir and western hemlock forests, and all of those deciduous, colorful trees you see there. Most of those are probably
Oh, that's all planted,
planted.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have some maple and alder, but for the most part, it stays green in the hills around here 24/7, 365. All right, so Psilocybe semilanceata. So this is the genus type of Psilocybe. And what's interesting is Psilocybe, the genus type was actually called Psilocybe montana, and it was a non-psychoactive psilocybe, if I'm getting this right. So I'm pretty sure this is right, but they had to divide it up between the non-psilocybe, or the non-hallucinogenic and the hallucinogenic. So the non ones became Diconica, and so Diconica montana was is now the genus type of Diconica. Psilocybe semilanceata, also known as the Liberty cap, is now the genus type for psilocybe. All other psilocybe mushrooms, um, their features are compared against this one. And so this one is said to not be native to Washington state, that these come from Europe. One of the first medical reports ever um, of people taking mushrooms in modern medical literature in the late 1700s. A guy went to Green Park in London, and he was foraging mushrooms to have in a mushroom stew. That, I guess, that's what they would have for breakfast in London in 1798. And he dosed his whole family up, a son and his daughter and himself, and they all ate some stew with a bunch of these mushrooms, Liberty caps. And then the apothecary or the doctor or whatever went over there and observed them. And it's pretty funny. You can look up the article online about they were suffering from immoderate fits of laughter. And the father kept seeing blackness, and then he would go into fits of laughter and then come back out. And so this doctor sat with the family and watched them all lose their minds on these mushrooms. These are really powerful. These grow in the grasslands, like around cow pastures here, not necessarily growing directly out of the dung, but growing on soil that's been fortified by that dung. When I was a kid, and when I was telling that story about seeing the old people that were hunched over picking mushrooms out of the field, that's what they were looking for. And I tell you what, in all of the, I mean, I spent years combing cow pastures, walking in the tall grass, soaked shoes and socks. Only once did we ever find these. And but they're supposedly really common. Liberty caps. I don't know. It's just everybody's experience is different. We found them one night, and me and two other buddies ate them, and we got stuck in this weird time loop where we like went around. This house had like a staircase that went up on the upstairs hallway banister, and then back down another staircase to the living room. And we did this for like 8 hours, saying the same things. It was weird. It was so weird. And we all still talk about that. Like, did that happen, dude? We got stuck in a loop, in like a matrix loop. Anyways, if you
The
ever
loops are real, man. The loops happen.
it was a glitch in the matrix in like 1997. If you've ever grilled like super hard on on psychedelic mushrooms, these are the guys, and they are little, but they pack a punch. So, like all psilocybe mushrooms are going to have a purple brown spore print, just like your cubensis. They're going to bruise blue, although sometimes not. They don't bruise quite as blue as they seem like they should for how powerful they are. And then they're caramel colored, and they have this gelatinous pellicle. If you look in the right picture, you can see that shininess on them. Yeah. And if you slowly start to break that cap and peel it apart, there'll be a clear viscid layer that stays intact. And that was the first thing this dude that I thought was pretty cool. He kind of taught me about magic mushrooms, and that was before any books or anybody knew anything about it. And he knew that, and that was like the first distinguishing ID characteristic. He told me it has to have this to be a magic mushroom, and I haven't found any other kind of mushrooms that have that gelatinous pellicle. Like, I'm sure they're out there, but I've never personally experienced one. So. But those three keys, bruise blue, purple brown spore print, gelatinous removable pellicle, are pretty much the three keys you need to know here in the Northwest to find a magic mushroom. Right. So those are Liberty caps. And these ones right here, Psilocybe cyanescens. So like I was saying, you could break down the syllables of the the Latin words and kind of get to understanding what it means. Cyan means blue. And so these mushrooms do blue pretty well. And in the right picture, you can see right around the margin, that's the very edge of the cap where it meets the gills. You can see it's a dark color, and it's a certain kind of blue-green color that, once you know what that looks like, it's pretty unmistakable. You can see a tiny little speck of blue on the stem and go, oh yeah, there's bluing, right? But if you don't really know what you're looking for, you don't know. These grow in wood chips. They're commonly called a wavy cap. They grow out near the coast, out by the ocean, but I'm pretty far inland, and they grow around here on wood chips. And these ones were photographed within a mile of my house. I walked my dog up the road, and these were growing just behind a building, just in my own neighborhood. And they are also very powerful. Same three morphological characteristics: dark purple brown spore print, gelatinous removable pellicle, and they're blue. They blue when bruised or damaged. Even raindrops can make pretty big blue spots on them. And if you look in the left picture at the closest one there, they're hygrophanous. So as they dry out, the center of the cap is a lighter color, and it works its way to the outer edge of the cap. And hygrophanous mushrooms do that. What's interesting is that when it gets wet, it's going to turn dark again. It'll turn back to that caramel color. And if you know who Jeff Glassard is, he did a really cool time lapse of some cyans. I believe they're cyans, and they hygrophanize or whatever. They turn light colored, and then it rains, and then they get dark, and then they go light, and then they go dark, and they like go back and forth. So really kind of a cool deal there. So philosophy cyanescence, easy to propagate. The one on the right, you can see the stem butt there. You could pinch that off and throw it in some new wood chips. And those leaves are of the rhododendron. And so we have a ton of rhododendrons and wood chips around here, and they're all good habitat for growing cyanescence. And so these also grow out by the coast in the dune grass, just a little ways off from the sand. It's on the beach of the Pacific Ocean. So one of the more powerful and common, probably the more common, probably the most common psychedelic mushroom here in Washington right now.
All right. I just got Jordan Jacobs. I bought a bunch of stuff from him. Prince.
Yeah.
I just got this, and I got a nice culture going.
Cool.
Trying to, yeah, just like you said, after you grow the cubes, then you want to grow some of the other stuff. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes.
Try it out. Yeah, I'm curious to know. I'll keep in touch. Oh, so here we are. Morphological features. I've already talked about this. Blue bruising, removable gelatinous pellicle, dark purple brown spore print. If it has all three of those things, you can bet your money on it, man.
Yeah.
You bet your money. This one it was revered as the most powerful psilocybe mushroom in the world, but I think Zapotecorum might be stronger. And
It's
I don't know.
looking like it, but I think they're right there. They're neck and neck.
Yeah. So we call these azzies, psilocybe azurescens, and azure is another word for green blue. So another blue color. You can see in the right picture on that tall center one, all the blue on the cap right there.
Oh yeah.
And these are all the different ages of them. I took these pictures last fall, and you can see they're growing in this introduced reed grass, this dune grass that grows. Farmers planted it out on the sand dunes to help hold the sand so that they could like have cows or whatever there, and it just took over, and it's very invasive, but it's good habitat for these mushrooms, the azurescens. They grow really big, and these are one of the ones that are attributed to wood lovers paralysis. And I've heard you and some people on the podcast talk about that before. People have eaten a lot of these and lost motor function for a couple hours, which sounds terrifying to me. Good on all of that, but be my guest. This one on the left got a really pointy little umbonate cap, and that's one thing I really like.
Umbo right there. Huh?
Yeah, I love these azzies for that. They just have this really magical looking little pointy umbo on a lot of them, and they bruise super blue. And when you hit them with a UV light, they actually glow up pretty cool from underneath. That blue turns really deep fluorescent purple. So
well, yeah. So I also have a culture of these, though. I hear these are not as easy to grow. I don't know if I'd be able to. I think I can do the cyanescence over here in Ohio. I don't know if I can pull these off. We
Yeah,
will find out.
I think they're pretty fickle, but I got a fruiting body that was grown in Montana on wood chip.
Okay.
Larry Evans had a basket full of these fruiting bodies, and he gave one to everybody, and they came from Montana. So
Hmm.
that was kind of cool. If you look in the right picture, you can see a bunch of dune grass attached to the mycelium at the base of those mushrooms. And this guy, Caleb Brown, he's in the process of writing a book with Alan Rockefeller about psilocybe mushrooms, but supposedly, I don't know. But Caleb's cool. But he showed me how you can actually pull up the roots of the grass and look at it and see the mycelium on the grass to know if you're even in the right area to start slowing down and looking for mushrooms. So
Hmm.
kind of a cool little secret if y'all ever get out here.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, I had somebody on the show tell me, oh, you should always add straw to your substrate because, God, the mycelium just loves crawling through those, the tubes of the straw, and,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that it strengthens the cake. That his theory was that now you have these, quick little highways the mycelium can jump from one place to the other. So who knows? Maybe that's a advantageous component of that. I mean, I have to imagine in general, if you're by the coast, it's very windy, but all that dune grass probably helps hold on to a lot of that moisture too.
Yeah. Yeah. Both. Definitely. All right. Psilocybe stuntii. This is named after Professor Stuntz, a famous mycologist. And um, there's a picture of Alan on the right. And oh, you've got to be kidding me, dude. Hold on. I'll start over on that spot. This is so crazy, dude. Normally, my wife, she's like bedridden right now. So normally she would like help take care of him, but this isn't going well.
So,
So, anyways, now at least the dogs are separated, so they won't be barking. Maybe.
right.
Just lay down, man. Quit. Okay. So, anyways, there on the right, that's Alan Rockefeller taking some pictures of these. This is a habitat, a wetland riparian zone. So what happens is wherever they displace a wetland here while they're building new whatever, Costco or whatever, then they have to replace that amount of wetland somewhere. And so they plant all these like willows and they throw wood chips everywhere, which just turns out to be really good habitat for magic mushrooms. But these ones were my real introduction to magic mushroom foraging in 1995, 96, 97. All of the new housing developments that were going in around here were the yards were being rolled out with new sod. And this sod came pre-inoculated with the mycelium of this psilocybe stuntii. We call them blue ringers because they have a really, really um, prevalent blue annulus on the stipe. But so what happened was fall hit, the rains hit, the weather cooled down, and these fruited everywhere. And so all of us kids were just running through people's lawns, picking them. I mean, just handfuls of them. And they're in the books you read will say that this is a mild hallucinogenic. That is not my experience. The first time I ever had a hallucinogenic experience was with these mushrooms. But that being said, there was four of us guys. We went out and we picked we had like a juice container, one of the big jugs, right, with the handle, like the floppy handle at the top, like a whole gallon jug, and we packed it full of these mushrooms. And then we made it into one pot of tea with like 4 cups,
Oh,
and we each had 1 cup, and everybody spoke different languages for
yeah.
like 8 hours. Like one of my buddies was breaking the mirror with his hand. Like it was a mess. It was insane. There was nothing spiritual. We were just trying to get high and it worked and we lost our minds and it was crazy. I ended up walking home like 6 hours that night. Like it was so crazy. But anyway, psilocybe stuntii, they grew like crazy for like 3 years. They just took over all the lawns. We picked them like crazy. And then just like that, they just disappeared. Nobody knew why. And it was like, what happened? And, the theory was the rumors going around is that people discovered a fungicide. They were tired of the teenagers in their lawn. So they started spraying this fungicide, killed it all, and I really don't think that's what it was. And it was interesting talking to that Caleb guy. He was talking about that people have actually studied the sod, talked to the builders of these complexes, and found out where that sod was coming from the valley near Sumner, Washington. There was a company called like Steerco that was making this soil that had a wood chip mulch in it. And somehow it was the exact perfect substrate that these mushrooms just love. And so they had the market on blue ringers, and they grew everywhere. Everybody lost their minds for a few years. And then just like that, poof, they're gone. Now they seem to be relatively rare, and they're not growing in the beautiful grass lawns. That was a telltale sign back in the day. A new neighborhood with really lush green lawns, man, in October, that's where you go. And so you'd have to, we'd be up in gated communities, like risking life in the middle of the night with flashlights to go find these bad boys, But yeah, really, I have good experiences. I've also fainted because I ate these, and I just fell over, hit my head on the cement once. And so I had some crazy times with the blue ringers. And so on the left are the pins coming up, real slimy little round guys, and then they open up, and they got a nice annulus. I guess in the center picture somewhere in the center right, you can kind of see that ring, but otherwise, I should get a picture of the blue ring a little better since they're called a blue ringer. But anyways,
yeah, I don't know much about these, but from the sounds of it, they live up to the first 5 letters of their species name. That's for sure.
Yeah,
but I guess if you fill an entire jug full of them, and make I mean, dude, that's you didn't weigh those out, clearly.
No, there was
just
nothing.
However many we can fit in there, add some water, let's see what happens.
And that's it. And like when I first got into it, like, nowadays like everybody's on the internet and they're like, how much, oh, microdose, like 0.2 grams, or like take 2 grams. It's a good starting dose. Like the first dude that I asked, the guy who knew where to find these, it was an old retirement community of like single wide trailers, and it was a gated community, but he knew where to find them. He knew what they looked like. And when I asked him, how much should we take? And he said those famous last words, he said, the more the better, and so we did it like that, you know what I mean? And if you ever seen that video, that Soundgarden video, Black Hole Sun, and all their eyes get like super big, I swear that was us that night. It was one of the crazy, it was like Halloween night, and that's the time, man. It's right around that week of Halloween is when all this magic mushrooms are growing around here like crazy.
I wonder what it was about that sod company. Like, so before that whole situation, I mean, were they native there, or?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so.
So just probably much less prevalent, and then you were just part of the Stuntsy heyday.
Totally.
There, I guess.
And anybody that's from the PNW, if you mention the blue ringers in the mid '90s, they go, "Oh my gosh, they were everywhere!" Right? It was just an explosion of them. It was crazy. I would take the screens out of the windows, have them drying under my bed, and I remember one guy saying, "You got to eat them wet and then just wash them down with milk, and that's really going to send you over the moon." And I did, and that was the time I fainted and I hit my head and I was cold sweating and stuff. And I remember thinking, like, I'm going to be the first guy to ever OD on psilocybin. This is the night, but I made it through. I'm still here. Yeah. No brain damage that I know of. So.
Nah, I'm sure.
This one, psilocybe alani or elenii. This one's more of a bell capped, also another wood chip loving one. I personally haven't found these. This is not my picture, but I find this picture interesting. There's 3 different colors of bark here, but it seems to be liking the more decayed wood chips. And then there's kind of the more cedar colored ones straight up above, and then these dark dyed ones. And I've heard people say that they'll grow in all 3, but personally, I find them in older wood chips that have a little bit decay, and they're always growing on the edge of the wood chip pile.
Right.
These ones are related to cyanescens, even though they don't get that wavy cap. They've actually got kind of a bell cap that looks a little bit more like Baeocystis, but they grow in big clumps, strongly hallucinogenic, reportedly, and a little bit more rare. Like I said, I've been foraging mushrooms for 30 years, and haven't came across these, although these were newly described as science in 2012. So a long cry from the mid 90s, by
Yeah,
2012, things had changed.
and I had heard the theory was they could have come in, been imported on wood chips, and then kind of established themselves up there as well. I want to say, like, it, people were finding them in Berkeley, like just in the
Yep.
city, under little landscape sections and stuff like that out
Yep.
on the wood chips.
Some of these are real cosmopolitan mushrooms. They like urban settings. They
Right.
like being where humans have disturbed or have, made environments for them. And so this one, contrary to some popular belief, is not named after Alan Rockefeller, named after John Allen,
Right.
a different mycologist. But I've heard people be like, he's got his own mushroom named after him. And he was quick to correct that it wasn't, this isn't named after him. So
Nice.
this one, Psilocybe baeocystis, really powerful. Look how blue these
yeah.
get. It's got kind of
They
a
look
real
dank, bro. They, I mean, they
those
just
look
look like
scary.
they'll work.
Yeah, those are some little slimers for sure. And
Now, is this one of
also,
your photos? This looks a little photo stack to me.
this is Alan's. This is an
Okay,
Alan
this has
picture.
that photo stack, Alan
Yeah,
Rockefeller look to it. Yep.
very vivid. And these have like a mottled gill. So if you look in that right mushroom with the gills there, and as the spores mature, they make little dark splotches all over these kind of cream colored gills. And so a mottled gill is really indicative of the genus Paneolus. And so this is one of the mottled gill psilocybes, and it bruises super blue. It shows a high amount of psilocin in there, which is in concert with psilocybin makes a really powerful mushroom. But these ones, one of the more rare mushrooms, but also fairly easy to propagate from what I understand. And Paul Stamets actually told me a story about how he had just carried some of these in his hand across his property, and the next autumn they were growing in the wood chips just from spores sprinkling out of his hand, which is pretty cool. I would think that they'd be a little more common if they're that easy to propagate. I think you just got really lucky. But,
Or he's a good storyteller.
yeah, that too. That's true.
You never know.
Yeah. The Psilocybe ovoidiocystidiata. So this one is not a native to here. I believe it grows out there on the East Coast. And
yeah, it grows right southern Ohio, like the Ohio River Basin, all into Pennsylvania. You apparently can trip over them anywhere you go. But you guys got them because you guys live in Mushroom Wonderland.
That's right.
So
yeah.
if you bring, I mean, if you guys visit the Pacific Northwest and you love mushrooms, bring some spores of something, man. You never know what you're going to be. You could be slide number 13 on this presentation in a couple years.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just bring something out there.
Totally. So, yeah, the ovoids, they do love it here. People have planted patches all over the place, and then they have naturalized. The spores have supposedly, it's so hard to prove that some guy didn't go and plant some there, but they're seeming to pop up. And this year, this spring was crazy down in the Portland area, which is a 3-hour drive from Seattle, but Portland, Oregon, very similar habitat. And the ovoids were just taking over wood chips down there. They're everywhere. Here in the left picture, there's two different phenotypes. There's this smaller bell cap phenotype down here in the front right, or front left picture, and then up top are some much bigger ones. So these were actually photographed while planting them with Jeff Glassart in the Johnny Appleseed of Magic Mushrooms video, which you can find only on Patreon now. But really cool, showing how we go out and plant those, and then finding ones that were planted the year before right in front of this nice woman's mailbox. She wasn't very happy about it, but you know, she's got over it, I think.
I'm sure she moved on.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, those are cool. I'd gone out a couple times this year trying to find them, have not found them. Of course, my buddy, he just has to rub it in my face, every post. It's I just went out for 5 minutes today and here's the 400 of them I found. Damn you! I got
Yeah,
drive.
they get pretty big.
Yeah,
And these
yeah.
have
You said they can easily. The caps can get a couple inches, no problem.
yeah, those big ones up in the corner there were easy 2.5 inches across. And they have a pretty light colored gill, and it isn't until really late in maturity that their spores come in. So, but yeah,
Cool,
overall,
man.
we're gonna say that they're growing around here now because they are. But usually, was that the end of them?
Yeah, that's what you sent me.
Okay, shoot. Well, I left out. Well, the first picture was the psilocybe folliculosa. That one didn't make it in there for some
Hmm.
reason. But the folliculosa is our one conifer woodland loving psilocybe mushroom. So I remember being a kid in my 20s or late teenage years and hearing old hippie guys being like, "Yeah, we used to go out in the woods and then eat these crazy mushrooms that are growing in the forest, and then we would see magical things." And I was like, okay, dude, like whatever. You were probably doing something else. And then, until I discovered, oh, these little psilocybe mushrooms, and they're reported to be mild, but they move in huge troops. I find them growing out in the forest, just amongst the moss, and
Hmm.
so those were some of the cooler ones that I photographed with Alan that one day. And so, if you look at the picture on Wikipedia, that's the same patch that I had found with him. So.
Nice.
Anyways, that's a little overview of the presentation of the psychedelic mushrooms of the Pacific Northwest. If anybody ever comes visits up here, there's magic growing all over
That's
in the
great.
autumn mainly. So
Yeah, we only have one or two. So you guys got a few more than us. Obviously, it's
so far,
impressive that you guys have that many. You're not in the tropics, you're not in the subtropical band, so it's a testament to that area, the humidity, the rainfall, the mostly well draining soil, all that stuff
yeah,
makes it so juicy for those guys up there.
yep, they're it's hard to talk about mushrooms up here without somebody raising their eyebrow and being like, I know what you're talking about. And it's like, okay, yep, yep, there are those too, so
See,
it's important to educate about them because there are deadly lookalikes that grow around here too in similar habitats. We have Galerina that grow in wood chips, just like a lot of these psilocybe mushrooms. We also have Foliotina or Conocosabe mushrooms, which can be very deadly, have the same antitoxins contained in the phalloides group of Amanitas. So, you should know what you're doing, but if you follow those three keys, you're pretty good to go, but if you're questioning it and it's growing in wood chips, make sure to do your homework, because people do end up in the hospital. There was a story of some teenagers went and picked what they thought were scions and they threw them on their hamburgers and all ended up in the hospitals getting liver transplants and stuff. So,
Oh
careful.
yeah. Yeah, we in the ER, one of the docs one day was talking about one of his friends is a doc up there, and they were reporting that they were having, they used to almost never have anybody show up for, toxicity issues with ingesting mushrooms, and they were starting to feel like it was happening more and more because more and more of these youngsters, they watch the videos and they go, oh wait, they're just out there in the woods
Yeah,
and they're just out looking for him. So your content, right? Anybody that's making content that's trying to show, hey, this is a marginata, this is not, this is, how to identify these mushrooms in the field. It's important work. It's good. It's like a public service announcement on one level.
totally. Totally. Yeah. It's interesting and entertaining. And so I think I'll be giving a similar talk at the Port Angeles Fungi Festival this year. Alan Rockefeller is going to be there. There's going to be quite a few big names. And so it's good to just educate people. People are really curious about it. Especially when you're dealing with, these are all LBMs. And so LBM is just another term for a little brown mushroom. There's nothing really exciting looking about them. You could easily pass by them in the forest and they have deadly lookalikes. So it's good to be educated on these if you ever want to go out and try to forage some for yourself.
I agree. Well, dude, We've I've been trying to keep it around an hour or two, and
Yeah.
you know so much and have so many great stories, and it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm probably gonna have to go get on that Patreon because I need to see some of that content you're talking about. So
Come on, man.
I'm gonna check out the Patreon, and I hope some of you guys, if you want to see the the non-YouTube friendly side of Aaron Hilliard, you just go over to the Patreon and check it out. It'll be in the description below. Um, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. Thank you for the shirt. I will be rocking the shirt. I have received a few shirts, many of which I can't wear out, in in my
I bet.
little like social get-togethers or school events and stuff like that. So Mushroom Wonderland is a shirt I could definitely wear out in public. So thank you for that.
We're keeping it
Um,
family friendly. I'm actually been sketching on a new logo, something
ooh,
like that,
well, that
so
looks cool, man. Dude,
working on
people love shirts. Just keep, it's like we were talking about, you know, instead of us trying to figure out what people will like, just put it out there. People
yeah.
will, people let you know. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you're of a kind of a select crowd because I have designed and bought a bunch of those T-shirts, and I've given them to all of the great mycologists that I've had the honor of meeting and going on
mhm.
forages with. And a couple of like big fans of mine or whatever have ordered some just through Facebook Messenger, or I sent them off, but I'm actually gonna open up a merch store.
Yeah.
Um, and so I just bought the domain name to mushroom-wonderland.com. So anyways, hats and shirts and all that kind of good stuff, and coming up with more logos. So people like mushroom stuff, and we try to just keep it whimsical and kind of innocent, and a lighter side of the mushroom world, that your friends and family and grandparents and everybody can watch and learn how to go out and find some sustainable, good edible food out in the forest. So I really appreciate you having me on, man. I'm a fan of the podcast, so really cool to
Cool,
be here.
man. Dude, all I know is all I want to do. I just want to keep bringing people in, talking to more people, because at the end of the day, we're all the same ilk, right? We're people who love mushrooms. The reasons can be different. Some people can like the names, can like the identifying features. Some people, they don't need to know any of that. They truly just want to wander around the woods and go, oh my God, I found some mushrooms. That's
Mhm.
great too. It doesn't matter. Whatever level you are a mushroom lover, it's okay.
Yeah,
It's not a competition. It's all about bringing people who love the same thing together. So
that's it.
I'm
There's a
glad.
lot of us.
A lot.
Yeah.
It's like I've said this before, and you know about this. Wood grain, right? Like the wood grain of birch and maple and walnut and all our domestic species that we harvest for hardwood furniture, right? If the more you work with it, the more you come to understand the grain and its beauty. And some people really get into that, and some people could care less
Right.
because
Exactly.
they're not wood people. And
Yep.
it's the same with
Exactly.
mushrooms, right? Like we're mushroom people, and we just, for us, there's something about it. We can't get enough of it. And so yeah,
It's hard to describe it.
yep,
People don't get it. People that don't get it will never get it. And I'll be in the forest on my belly taking pictures of a mushroom, and I'm excited. And somebody's like, "Cool, can we eat it?" And I'm like, "Oh no, this one's poisonous." And they're like,
right.
What are you even wasting your time with it for then?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know, because it's interesting. It's fascinating. Why are we doing anything?
Yeah,
Do it.
why do you surf? Why do you hang glide? Why do you paint? Why do you, right? It's just your thing,
Yeah.
right?
Like,
Yeah.
why
Why
not?
do you like mushrooms? I don't know, man. I just do.
Yeah. Just doing the things. So
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, thank you
awesome.
so much for being on. Yeah, we'll have to do it again sometime. And if you got anything coming up, if you're going to be somewhere, let me know. I'm happy to. I definitely want to try to use the podcast as a little like news outlet. So if something's coming up, you can always drop me a line like, "Hey, I'm going to be at this conference giving a talk." I'll be happy to mention it in the beginning of a podcast just so people know what's going on.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man. Yeah, I've been looking at MycoFest out there in Pennsylvania.
Think I'm
Whatever.
going there. Yeah, probably doing the NAMA out here too. Just got to start going to all the stuff around me. The bigger
Yeah.
trips cost more
Yeah.
money, so
Well, hopefully I'll see you. There's so much going on the East Coast, but I'll be at the Olympic Peninsula Fungi Festival in Port Angeles the last weekend of October, the first weekend of November. I'll be at the KPMS annual mushroom show at Olympic College and just doing all the mushroom events around here, probably at the Puget Sound Mycological Society show as well. So
awesome.
make sure to subscribe on Mushroom Wonderland and
Yeah, guys. I mean, he has got a really stellar YouTube channel. I mean, if you don't already know who he is, go check him out. One video, you'll know more than you started. Just it's really worth checking out. So, all right, man. Take care. Have a good night. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Much love.
All right, take care. All right, guys. Well, that was Aaron Hilliard of Mushroom Wonderland. Really cool guy. Really appreciate him coming on the show, talking about what he's all about. Living that YouTube content creator life, that mushroom loving life, that trying to work and raise a family and still do all this stuff. So he's definitely a role model for me, and really appreciated getting a chance to talk to him. I hope you guys enjoyed him. If you do not already have not subscribed to him and don't follow him on YouTube, I mean, what are you waiting for? He has got some really great videos. He goes out and forages with all the cool kids. Some really great mycologists. So check him out. Next week we're actually gonna be talking with bonsai fungi. I know last week I said we were gonna do that. This week we didn't do it. This week gonna be next week. So anyway, had some technical difficulties. We worked through it, and got to keep the train moving, right? So anyway, thanks again for tuning in, and happy mushroom cultivation. Hope you guys have a good week.